Chapter 438. Stick's Sword Technique. First move, Road to the Underworld. Tianyang shouted coldly. His netherworld energy, along with the netherworld death chi, turned into a pitch-black sword radiance and slashed towards Xieling. Tianyang was a man of his word. When he attacked, it was as powerful as lightning. What? Xieling's face changed when he saw the attack. He looked at the attack in disbelief. The attack was even stronger than his strongest attack. Tianyang was only at the first sky of the Dao Fire Realm. How could he surpass him in terms of swordsmanship? Damn it! Break it! Xieling shouted. In the next moment, the Overlord's sword in his hand shone brightly as he slashed out without hesitation. The attack carried a powerful aura. The mysterious runes on his body released the power of the mysterious runes. It was much stronger than the previous attack. Boom! The netherworld energy continued to attack the Overlord's sword, but the Overlord's sword resisted the attack. The netherworld death chi continued to corrode the Overlord's sword. Even the powerful aura was disintegrated. Boom! The air shook and the Overlord's sword was blown away. The pitch-black sword radiance also slashed towards Xieling. Damn it! Xieling's face changed when he saw the attack. He stared at the road to the underworld, and the mysterious rune battle body shone brightly. I don't believe that the trash from the Dark Hall can defeat me. Xieling roared. The Overlord's sword in his hand suddenly expanded. The power of the mysterious runes gathered on the sword, and even the Overlord's sword was covered in mysterious runes. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He looked at the Overlord's sword that was covered with mysterious runes and said in a low voice. He managed to cultivate the mysterious rune battle body. It seems like Xieling isn't just a playboy. Tianyang smiled faintly. Many people had special constitutions, but it was extremely difficult to activate the special abilities of these special constitutions. Xieling was quite capable to be able to do this. Unfortunately, he had met Tianyang. Sky Extreme Sword Art. First sword, soaring heavens. Tianyang shouted coldly, and the true essence in his body circulated madly. In the next moment, he used the dragon's 9 heavens roaming steps and disappeared on the spot. The next time he appeared was when the two swords collided. Boom! A terrifying explosion erupted from the center of the battle between the two. True essence revolved, causing the space to shake. Fluctuating energy ripples almost covered the entire martial stage. Seeing this situation, everyone couldn't help but gasp. Tianyang is too powerful. Xieling is ranked 11th on the Heaven's Chosen list. He's extremely powerful, but Tianyang is actually able to fight him to a standstill. Have you forgotten that Tianyang could even kill Elder Aoba? Xieling was forced to use his trump card. What about Tianyang? The crowd couldn't help but discuss amongst themselves. At this moment, the mysterious runes on Xieling's body gradually dimmed. The expression on his face was one of shock. In terms of power and strength, Tianyang's sword wasn't any weaker than his. One had to know that Tianyang was only at the first sky of the Dao Fire Realm. Compared to Xieling, who was at the third sky of the Dao Fire Realm, Tianyang was an entire realm lower. In the end, Xieling was still suppressed by Tianyang. This is impossible. Xieling roared madly, and he used all his strength to activate his mysterious rune battle body. However, Tianyang's expression didn't change. The stick's sword in his hand flashed, and the true dragon's strength exploded. Bang! With a loud explosion, Xieling's body was sent flying. Tianyang followed up with another attack. Sky Extreme Sword Art. Second sword, shatter the heavens. The Annihilation spiritual fire burned, and the Annihilation sword radiance bloomed. A destructive sword intent that could destroy everything was released from the sword. Seeing this, the crowd's expression changed. They looked at Tianyang's sword in disbelief. Profound meaning, and it's the most complete, profound meaning. Tianyang has only been the first sky of the Dao Fire Realm for a few days, and he has already mastered a complete, profound meaning. Countless people were dumbfounded. Even the top 10 and top 5 on the genius roll were shocked. The Tao Fire Realm was the cultivation of profound meaning. However, Tianyong had mastered a complete, profound meaning with his first sky of the Tao Fire Realm cultivation. In other words, Tianyong had already reached the peak of this profound meaning. If Tianyong heard the crowd's thoughts, he would definitely curl his lips. This sword was created by him. If he hadn't reached the peak of this sword, who else could? However, at this moment, Xieling couldn't care less about the profound meaning. His entire vision was occupied by the sword that seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. A trace of shock and trembling appeared in his mind. The ninth hall can't lose. At this moment, a determined look flashed across Xieling's eyes. In his dantian, a true origin flame burned fiercely. In the next moment, it spread throughout all of his true origin, burning true origin flame. For a Tao Fire Realm cultivator, this was the simplest way to increase one's combat power. However, the price of burning true origin flame wasn't as high as the price of a blood sacrifice. Damaging one's true origin flame was a small matter. The most important thing was that it would damage one's martial foundation. If he burned his true origin flame for too long, he might not be able to make any progress in his entire life. Destroy. Xieling was like a madman. The Overlord sword in his hand shone brightly. Low-grade, Earth-tier, martial soul, Overlord spirit. Peerless Earth-tier, martial technique, heaven-shaking Overlord sword. Xieling roared and released his martial soul. He executed his strongest martial technique and burned his true origin flame. At this moment, he had already unleashed his strongest strength. In the next moment, the Overlord sword expanded and became a giant sword that was hundreds of feet long. It directly destroyed the heaven-shattering sword. Then, Xieling's blood-red eyes shot towards Tianyong. Lose. Xieling was on the verge of madness. He charged towards Tianyong with the giant sword in his hand. Seeing this, Tianyong smiled faintly. The stick's sword in his hand shone brightly. Competing with the giant sword? Who's afraid of who? The 108 True Dragon patterns on the True Dragon core exploded. Countless True Dragon force gathered on the stick sword. A divine ability that wasn't weaker than a low-grade heaven-tier martial technique was released. The stick sword was also surrounded by True Dragon force. It expanded by 1,000 meters. True Dragon Overlord sword. Looking at the Styx River sword that looked like a heavenly sword, countless people were shocked. Even Zhou Ling, Ling Yuhan, and Dao Feiyong had their mouths agape. How shocking was it for a person who was less than 2 meters tall to hold a 1,000-meter sword? At this moment, facing Xieling, who was charging at him with the Overlord sword, Tianyong faintly smiled and slashed out with the True Dragon King sword. He didn't use any martial technique or other techniques. He only used True Origin Flame and True Dragon Force. This was a complete suppression of strength. Boom! As the True Dragon Overlord sword slashed down, a 1,000-meter-long crack appeared in the air. Xieling was also sent flying by this attack. He was heavily injured. The 300-meter-long giant sword completely dissipated and fell to the ground. Tianyong, on the other hand, smiled faintly and retracted the True Dragon's power. The Styx sword also reverted to its original, ordinary appearance. Tianyong's robes fluttered in the wind, and he retracted his aura. It was as if he had become an ordinary person. However, Xieling, who was seriously injured and on the verge of death, was constantly attracting everyone's attention. It told them, Tianyong's strength. Third round, 10th Hall, Tianyong wins. The 10th Hall is victorious in this competition. Chapter 439. The 10th Hall won. When these 4 words resounded throughout the entire martial arts arena, everyone was convinced of his strength. Regardless of whether it was the original rule of winning 3 out of 5 matches or Xieling's shameless request for a 2-man duel, the 10th Hall had won. Even the people from the 9th Hall, who were unwilling to accept this, were speechless. They could only watch as Tianyong returned with glory and Xieling remained unconscious. Damn that Xieling. If not for him, the 9th Hall wouldn't have gone against the 10th Hall. we wouldn't have offended Tianyang. Now, not only does the ninth hall have to remove their control over the 10th hall, but they also have to give up 90% of their cultivation resources. How are we going to survive like this? The people from the ninth hall roared. Then, they looked coldly at the unconscious Xieling. Let him die here. Let's go. Hearing this, the people from the ninth hall nodded. They didn't even want to help Xieling up and left without looking back. As for 90% of their cultivation resources, although they felt the pinch, they had to hand it over to the 10th hall. Otherwise, Sky Blue College wouldn't just sit there and watch. As long as this kind of bet was established, there had to be a result. The college wouldn't care who won or lost. They would only ensure that the bet was fulfilled. However, after this competition, the ninth hall's strength was greatly reduced. Countless students left, causing the ninth hall to become the weakest hall in the upcoming competition. However, this was a story for another day. At this moment, Tianyang walked back to the 10th hall with a calm face. Yay! Seeing Tianyang return in triumph, the people from the 10th hall cheered. Then, they picked up Tianyang and threw him into the air a few times. Ever since the 10th hall fell from grace more than 10 years ago, they had never been so proud. However, Tianyang had done it. The people from the 9th hall also saw this scene. However, they could only grit their teeth and leave. Tianyang, from today onwards, you are the second person from the 10th hall to enter the top 15 of the genius roll. Zhou Linger said excitedly to Tianyang after the crowd's revelry had died down. Upon hearing this, Tianyang nodded his head. He had defeated Xieling in front of the crowd and naturally inherited Xieling's ranking on the genius roll. Being on the prodigy roll wasn't just a title. They would be given additional cultivation resources on top of the cultivation resources given to them by their respective halls. For example, Zhou Ling was ranked 7th on the prodigy roll. Not only did she receive a spirit origin pill from the 10th hall every month, but she also received 20 spirit origin pills from Sky Blue College. If there was a need, Zhou Linger could even get contribution points directly. As for Tianyang, he was ranked 11th. Every month, in addition to the reward from the 10th hall, he would receive 15 spirit source pills. For a first-level Dao Fire Realm cultivator, this was an extremely generous reward. As for Xieling, he was kicked out of the prodigy role after being defeated by Tianyang. If he wanted to enter the prodigy role again, he could only challenge others. In the Elders' Hall of the 9th Hall, Yuan Hao, who was grounded, had to spend this month in the Elders' Hall. Fortunately, the Elders' Hall wasn't small, so it wasn't as annoying as a prison. However, although Yuan Hao was currently in the Elders' Hall, his expression was extremely ugly as he glared at the student from the 9th Hall who came to report to him. You're saying that the 9th Hall has been kicked out of the 10th Hall for all our little tricks? Yuan Hao roared. Hearing this, the student who was only at the peak of the Dao Fire Realm nodded his head while trembling. Hearing this, Yuan Hao was even more furious. Damn the 10th Hall. First they killed my elder, then they ruined my plan. If I get out, I'll definitely destroy the 10th Hall. Yuan Hao roared crazily. Then he looked at the student who was at the peak of the Dao Fire Realm and said coldly, "What else do you have to say? This time, we've lost 90% of our cultivation resources. According to the Great Elder's calculations, the 9th Hall will lose at least 80% of our students. Most of them will run to the 1st Hall, the 2nd Hall, and most of them will run to the 10th Hall," the student said in a trembling voice. Hearing this, Yuan Hao's eyes widened as his legs trembled. "What did you say?" Yuan Hao roared at the sky. His voice rolled and shattered the eardrums of the student in front of him. Yuan Hao was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. As for the student, he covered his bleeding ear and fell to the ground, unable to get up. "Tianyang, you're the hero of the 10th Hall this time. Come, let's drink." Zhou Linger held a large wine cup in her hand. The wine cup was filled with the 10th Hall's treasured liquor. After she finished speaking, she didn't care about Tianyang and downed it in one gulp. Tianyang, on the other hand, downed the wine cup in front of him with a helpless expression. "Senior sister, you're almost drunk. Don't drink so much," Tianyang said helplessly. He glanced around and saw that Ling Yuhan and Flying Sword, who were in the same room as him, had long been knocked out by Zhou Linger. Flying Sword had collapsed at the door. Ling Yuhan was still fine. Tianyang carried her to a bench to lie down, but she was now spouting nonsense. As for Zhou Linger, although she could still drink, she probably wouldn't be able to last much longer with her drunken state. Tianyang felt a headache coming on as he recalled the scene from before. After sending off a large group of 10th Hall disciples who wanted to admire their senior brother Tianyang's handsome face, Zhou Linger suggested that they have a big meal in Tianyang's room. This martial arts competition was the 10th Hall's first victory in more than a decade, so it was naturally worth celebrating. However, what really made the situation worse was the 3 jars of wine that Zhou Linger took out. According to Zhou Linger herself, she had spent 5,000 contribution points to exchange for these 3 jars of wine from the 10th Hall's treasure house. They were the best wine in the firmament territory. The wine was good, but the strength was a bit too strong. Even the cultivators of the Dao Fire Realm were knocked down. Now, the only one who was sober was Tianyang. The strength of the true dragon body directly increased Tianyang's alcohol tolerance. With a strong body comparable to a Sea of Soul Realm practitioner, he naturally wouldn't be knocked out by the wine. However, Tianyang had the true dragon body, while others didn't. Boy, you're a good drinker. Let's continue. Zhou Linger's Lolita body and Lolita face didn't look very elegant, holding a large jar of wine. However, Tianyang didn't want to persuade his senior sister. After swallowing the rest of the wine, Tianyang stood up and was about to help these drunkards back to their rooms when tut, 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 puff. Zhou Linger had just drunk more than half of the wine, but she couldn't control herself and spat it all out. The wine spilled all over Tianyang. What impressed Tianyang the most was that this Lolita's senior sister directly passed out after spitting out the wine. Tianyang called her dozens of times, but she didn't get up. It's also wrong to be so good at drinking. Tianyang was speechless. He used the spiritual fire of destruction to dry the wine on him and took them back to their rooms. The flying sword was easy to clean up. He just threw them on the bed. What about the 2 beauties? Tianyang had no choice but to carry them back to their rooms. Ling Yuhan was still talking nonsense. Master, don't be like this. Tianyang was speechless. After throwing Zhou Linger into his room, he went straight to the living room to practice. Time passed. For hours later, Tianyang suddenly opened his eyes. Looking at the wine that had been refined into a ball of pure energy, he said in surprise. Chapter 440. The next day, the 3 of them got out of bed at the same time. It might be the first time they slept since they stepped onto the martial path. Cultivators, especially those who wanted to reach the peak of the martial path, were unusually hardworking. They almost used cultivation to replace sleep. It was rare to see people like the 3 of them who slept until the sun was high up in the sky. Ah, master, you're not in my room. Looking at Tianyang, who was quietly cultivating in the living room, Ling Yuhan's face immediately flushed red. She clearly remembered what kind of dream she had yesterday. Tianyang looked at Ling Yuhan strangely. Why would I be in your room? Nothing. Ling Yuhan quickly changed the topic and said in surprise, this wine doesn't have any after effects at all. Zhou Linger walked out of Tianyang's room and rubbed her sleepy eyes. She said proudly, I spent 5,000 contribution points to exchange for this wine. It's much better than the wine brewed by mortals. Moreover, it's helpful for cultivation. It's a pity that you've all fallen asleep. The energy in the wine has merged with your body. Zhou Linger sighed, completely forgetting that she had also fallen asleep. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled. It is indeed very helpful for cultivation. Hearing this, Zhou Linger was stunned. Then, she looked at Tianyang and her eyes widened in disbelief. You've broken through? Zhou Linger looked as if she had seen a ghost. She stared at Tianyang. How many days had it been? Tianyang had broken through to the first heaven of the Dao Fire Realm on Sky Blue Island. It was easy to find out about this. In the end, Tianyang had broken through again in less than a week. Zhou Linger was shocked when she saw the aura exuding from Tianyang's body. Although the wine was helpful for cultivation, it couldn't be this terrifying. The only explanation was that Tianyang's martial talent was too monstrous. Otherwise, how could he break through from the first heaven of the Tao fire realm to the peak of the first heaven in just a few days? You, Sai, I can't talk to a genius like you. Zhou Ling was just about to say something when she sighed. Clearly, she was struck by Tianyang's cultivation speed. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled. I also used all the spirit source pills I got from the inner court tournament. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to break through. Tianyang smiled and said, by the way, Ling didn't you say that you would bring us to the other 2 treasures of Sky Blue College today? Hearing this, Zhou Ling was stunned, then nodded. That's true. Let's go. Sky Blue College, Sanbao. Void Thunder Palace. Tianyang and the other 2 had already seen it in the outer court. Especially Tianyang, who had broken the outer court's record the first time he challenged the Void Thunder Palace, directly surpassing Zhao Shanhe. The remaining 2 treasures were located in the inner court. Tianyang was only an outer court freshman before and didn't have the qualifications to enter the inner court. Now that he had entered the inner court, he naturally had to take a look at those 2 treasures. Void Thunder Palace is a place to raise cultivation and temper the physical body. As for the remaining 2 treasures, one is the Trial Tower and the other is the Tao Palace. As the name suggests, the Trial Tower is a place to test the strength of disciples. Just like the Sword Tower in Night Dome City, the Trial Tower is all-encompassing. Regardless of whether you walk the path of blade, spear, lightning, or any other path, you can test it. As for the Tao Palace, it is used to comprehend the great Taos. This Tao Palace was personally found by the Dean who reached the 7th sea of Soul Realm 9,000 years ago. The great Taos contained within it could be used even by Sea of Soul Realm experts. As the 4 advanced, Zhou Ling explained. Hearing her words, everyone nodded. Previously in the outer court, they simply couldn't find out such information. But in the inner court, it was directly made public. From this, one could see the difference between the outer court and inner court. We've arrived at the Trial Tower. If you want to test it, you can go in. I've already gone in before and haven't made any progress, so I don't need to go in again. Tianyang and the other 3 stopped in front of a huge tower, while Zhou Ling said in an indifferent voice, the Trial Tower has a total of 81 floors. It's the same as the Void Thunder Palace. As long as your comprehension of Great Taos reaches a certain level, you can enter the Trial Tower. Entering the Trial Tower costs 1,000 contribution points. However, in the Trial Tower, you'll get 100 contribution points every time you break through a floor. As the floor increases, the contribution points will increase. Zhou Ling said indifferently, the first floor is 100, the second floor is 200, and so on. At the 81st floor, it'll be 8,100. Hearing her words, the 3 nodded slightly. Apart from Zhou Ling they all had the intention to go in and take a look. Then senior sister Ling I'll have to trouble you to wait for us for a while. Ling Yuhan said with a smile. Hearing this, Zhou Ling smiled. The number 1 on the Heaven's Chosen list, Lung Xing, is only at the 72nd floor, and I'm only at the 54th floor. You guys, if you can make me wait for 10 minutes, consider it my loss. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, but he didn't say anything. Flying Sword's expression also turned serious. Even a number 1 genius was only at the 72nd floor. It seemed that this Trial Tower was indeed extraordinary. After that, the 3 of them entered the Trial Tower together. Oh, isn't this Zhou Ling from the 10th Hall? Why, you're in a mood to come to the Trial Tower today. At this moment, a light voice came from the side. The words were filled with ridicule. Hearing this, Zhou Ling face darkened. She turned her head and saw a face that made her extremely disgusted. The first hall is amazing. Wang Lang, scram back to where you came from. Zhou Ling said coldly. Hearing this, the young man called Wang Lang's face gradually darkened. You want me to scram? When did you, the 10th Hall, become so mighty? Do you really think that you can be arrogant just because you defeated the 9th Hall? Let me tell you, in less than a month, it will be the Hall competition. At that time, I'd like to see how you can still be so stubborn. Wang Lang sneered. As the 8th on the Heaven's Chosen list, he was one rank lower than Zhou Ling'er. However, because he was from the 10th hall, he had never thought highly of Zhou Ling'er. Even if Zhou Ling'er was stronger than him, it was the same. Humph. At least, I'm stronger than you, Zhou Ling'er said angrily. Hearing this, Wang Lang's face darkened. He then looked at the trial tower in front of him and sneered. The ones who just entered are the 3 freshmen from the 10th hall this year, right? Among them, is that Tianyang who defeated Xialing? This trial tower is not that easy to pass. I estimate that even that Tianyang will stop at the 20th floor at most. Wang Lang sneered. Hearing this, Zhou Ling'er's face suddenly changed and revealed a smile. What if Tianyang breaks through to the 20th floor? Hearing this, Wang Lang sneered. How can a freshman reach the 20th floor and above? Even Lung Xing then only reached the 35th floor on his first try. If Tianyang really reaches the 20th floor and above, I'll climb around the trial tower 3 times. All right, it's a deal. Chapter 441. This trial tower is quite interesting. Tianyang stood on the first level of the trial tower and looked at the sword puppet that suddenly appeared in front of him with a faint smile. He could see that the sword puppet was the trial tower's way of testing the sword principle, and this sword puppet was probably at the peak of the half-step Dao fire realm. After all, this wasn't the sword pagoda in Night Dome City. Tianyang wasn't so kind as to create another one for the Sky Blue Sword sect in his previous life. Wouldn't that be a waste? I'm not in a hurry to pass the first level. Let's do some research first. Tianyang smiled and quickly captured the sword puppet and began to disassemble it for research. However, this research made Zhou Ling, who was outside, anxious. What the hell is Tianyang doing? It's been half an hour, and he's only at the first level. Zhou Ling couldn't help but shout angrily. She could see the situation inside from outside. Now, even the flying sword and Ling Yuhan had reached the 9th level, but Tianyang was still at the first level. Ha ha ha, this Tianyang is indeed trash. He only managed to kill Ao Ba and defeat Xialing with some tricks. Now that the trial tower is testing his great Dao cultivation, he's showing his true colors. Wang Lang mocked from the side. He still remembered the bet from before, and now it seemed that he was almost certain to win. As time slowly passed, the number of levels that Dao Feiyang and Ling Yuhan passed also increased steadily. After another incense stick's worth of time, Dao Feiyang had passed to the 19th level, while Ling Yuhan had passed to the 26th level. Wang Lang's face stiffened when he saw the 3 words, Ling Yuhan, on the 26th level. Zhou Ling sneered at the side. How about it? Ling Yuhan is also a new student, and she reached the 26th level. Why aren't you going to climb 3 rounds of the trial tower? Hearing this, Wang Lang's face turned pale. Then, he glanced at the Tianyang on the first floor and tried to quibble. Our bet is the Tianyang. Tianyang has only reached the first level. He definitely can't reach the 20th level. When the time comes, the loser will definitely not be me. Wang Lang sneered. Upon hearing this, Zhou Ling'er's heart sank. She looked at Tianyang, who was still stuck at the first level, and felt a little worried. Tianyang was a genius who could kill Ao Ba, defeat Xialing, and use his complete power Upanishad. Could it be that he would really be defeated in the Tower of Trials? TSK, I knew it. Tianyang, who is only at the first level of the Dao Fire Realm, must have used some sort of method to kill Ao Ba and defeat Xialing. Right now, the Tower Trials tests one's true strength. True gold fears no fire. However, this Tianyang has probably been burned to death. Ha ha! Because of Wang Lang and Zhou Ling'er, who were both in the top 10, many people had gathered in front of the Tower of Trials. When they saw that Tianyang was still stuck at the first level after 2 incense sticks a time, they did not hold back and started to mock him. Hearing this, Zhou Ling'er's face turned completely cold as she looked at the crowd coldly. If you're so good, why don't you go and get the 11th place on the Heaven's Pride roll? Hearing this, not only did the crowd not stop, but they also started to mock him. Tianyang only used some sort of method. If I had it, I might be able to do it too. Anyway, It's impossible for me to stay at the first level for 2 incense sticks of time. That person mocked. At this moment, Wang Lang's eyes moved slightly as he looked at the Tower of Trials. Tianyang, it's moving. The design of this sword puppet is really exquisite. No wonder it can be used to test people. Tianyang smiled as he looked at the sword puppet in front of him that had been dismantled into pieces by him. Only the energy core was still glowing. Then, without hesitation, Tianyang crushed the sword puppet with his foot. Whoosh! A silver light flashed, and Tianyang arrived at the second level. It's only the second level. Reaching the second level in 2 incense sticks of time is still a piece of trash among trash. Wang Lang sneered and mocked him again. At this moment, someone behind him stuttered. It seems like no, it's not just the second level. Hearing this, Wang Lang's expression changed as he looked at the Tower of Trials. Then he was stunned on the spot. His eyes widened to the extreme, and his face was filled with disbelief. The second level, the third level, the fourth level, the fifth level, the 18th level, the 19th level, the 20th level, the 21st level, the 39th level, the 40th level, the 50th level, the 60th level. Tianyang rose crazily faster than a rocket. In just a few minutes, he had reached the 60th level. He surpassed Wang Lang's 50th level and Zhou Linger's 54th level, reaching the unprecedented 60th level. Even Sword Spirit Zhou Tong had only reached the 45th level when he challenged the Sword Pagoda for the first time. Compared to Tianyang, there was a gap of 15 levels. Moreover, this was not Tianyang's limit. Wang Lang was like a male duck that had its throat pinched as he stared at this scene. After reaching the 60th level, Tianyang's speed slowed down slightly. However, it was still an unimaginable speed. The people behind Wang Lang were all shocked. Only Zhou Ling smiled faintly. This was the Tianyang she knew. Perhaps it was because of other reasons that he could reach the first level in 2 incense sticks of time. The other students who passed by also noticed the dumbfounded situation of more than 10 people here. They came over to inquire about it and became part of the dumbfounded crowd. Under Tianyang's radiance, Flying Sword and Ling Yuhan's battle results were overshadowed. Flying Sword had reached the 31st level. Ling Yuhan had reached the 36th level. Under normal circumstances, this was a result that could shake the entire inner court. However, under Tianyang's radiance, all of this turned into dregs. Even a number 1 on the prodigy roll, Lung Xing, was only 36th. Now, Tianyang was already 66. This is impossible. This is impossible. Wang Lang's lips kept moving up and down. Only 4 words came out of his mouth. Zhou Linger, who was beside him, was also stunned. Tianyang, this brat, had directly blasted her senior sister into pieces. However, Zhou Linger also revealed a slight smile. With this kind of fresh blood, the 10th Hall might really be able to rule the inner court once again. When Tianyang had just joined, the bold words he had said were still vivid in Zhou Linger's mind. Today, Zhou Linger truly felt hope. What's the situation? At this time, Flying Sword walked out and looked at the hundreds of dumbfounded people in front of him with a strange expression. One of them was still dumbfounded. He only stretched out his hand and pointed upwards. Flying Sword turned his head strangely and immediately widened his eyes. F***CK. At this moment, Tianyang had already arrived. Chapter 442, 72nd floor. Currently, the number 1 genius of the inner courtyard, Lung Xing, had stopped here. In the previous 72 floors, the sword puppets were only superimposed in terms of numbers. In terms of strength, they were all around the peak of the half-step Dao Fire Realm. However, after reaching the 72nd floor, everything changed. The number of sword puppets did not increase, but instead decreased. However, every single sword puppet had increased their strength to the first level of the Dao Fire Realm. As for the 72nd floor, there were a total of 360 sword puppets. It was equivalent to Heavenly Sun facing 360 Dao Fire, First Firmament Realm cultivators alone. This is a bit of a trap. No wonder that Lung Xing was defeated here. Tianyang muttered as he looked at the 360 Dao Fire Realm first-level sword puppets in front of him. However, the river stick sword in his hand was still shining with a sharp light. In the next moment, Tianyang used the Nine Heavens Dragon roaming steps and directly attacked. It wasn't like he had never fought a group of people before. Kill, kill, kill. The sword puppet did not have the slightest bit of intelligence and was only a puppet used for battle. However, in terms of battle, this puppet was not the slightest bit weaker than an ordinary first-level Dao Fire Realm cultivator. In terms of defensive power, it was much stronger than a cultivator at the first level of the Dao Fire Realm. Extreme Sky Sword Art, Soaring Heavens. Tianyang coldly snorted as the true essence in his body circulated at an extremely fast speed. In the next moment, he directly slashed out with his sword. An extremely sharp and terrifying sword light erupted from the tip of Tianyang's sword. In the next moment, it directly devoured more than 10 sword puppets. However, the remaining 300 or so sword puppets were still extremely difficult to deal with. Kill, kill, kill. A bloody light flashed in the sword puppet's eyes. In the next moment, it brandished the sword in its hand and directly charged out. More than 300 sharp sword lights erupted from the sword puppet's sword. In the next moment, they turned into a terrifying storm of sword chi that enveloped Tianyang. Bang, 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 bang. Countless sword chi slashed onto Tianyang's body at the same time. Even with the powerful physique of a true dragon, Tianyang couldn't help but suffer some minor injuries. The moon battle armor, which was only a high-grade artifact, was even more damaged. A high-grade artifact was still too weak in a battle of this level. However, if you want to blast me back with an attack of this level, you're dreaming. Tianyang smiled faintly. In the next moment, lightning flashed in his hand, and a monstrous sword light burst forth at the same time. Lightning God's sword, Lightning God's descent. An enormous shadow of the Thunder God condensed and transformed into a myriad of lightning swords that fiercely attacked the over 300 sword puppets. Boom! Boundless lightning flashed, and in the next moment, it directly struck the bodies of countless sword puppets. All of the sword puppets stopped moving and started to tremble. The sword puppets were made of metal, and their conductivity was extremely high. When the Thunder God descended, at least a fifth of the 300 over sword puppets collapsed. In other words, this strike had annihilated 60 to 70 sword puppets. Even the cold stars were not as powerful as Tianyang. Not bad. The research on the first level is indeed useful. Then, let's directly cut the grass. Tianyang smiled. If not for Tianyang's research on the first level, Tianyang would never have been able to control the weakness of the sword puppets so clearly. However, this kind of weakness could only be used once. After that, the sword puppets would automatically adjust themselves. Then, they could only fight head-on. However, Tianyang was not afraid in the slightest. Heavenly Sword Art. Third Sword, Star Burial. Kill, kill. River Stick Sword Art. 2 moves in 1. Kill, kill. Heavenly Sword Art. Second Sword, Heaven Shattering. River Stick Sword Art. Third Sword, River of Forgetfulness. Kill. One after another, incomparably powerful sword moves erupted from Tianyang's hands, and the sword puppets fell one after another. Although these sword moves couldn't compare to the Thunder God sword in terms of the number of instant kills, they couldn't stop Tianyang from having so many sword moves and being so strong. When one sword puppet fell, no more sword puppets stood up. Under Tianyang's storm of sword moves, only 5 sword puppets remained out of the original 360 sword puppets. These 5 were all badly damaged and couldn't fight at all. 108 drops of Heaven Origin True Essence to break through to the Dao Fire Realm is indeed powerful. Up until now, I have only used up more than 20 drops, and the 108th drop is not missing at all. Tianyang looked inside and was immediately shocked. One had to know that in his previous life, he had experienced such a great battle and had directly exhausted all of his true essence. In the end, he was still very energetic and the true essence in his body was still extremely abundant. If that's the case, I might be able to break through this trial tower. Tianyang smiled slightly, then raised his sword and charged towards the weak, pitiful, and helpless 5 sword puppets. Under Tianyang's brutal sword moves, the energy cores of the 5 sword puppets were directly destroyed. Tianyang also arrived at the 73rd level. Seeing this scene, the entire crowd outside the trial tower was in an uproar. Ling Yuhan, who had passed through the 37th level, jumped up in excitement when she saw this scene. Master is invincible. Master is invincible. Even a usually calm, flying sword waved his hand and shouted with a flushed face. First, as for the others, they were also extremely excited. They all knew what the 73rd level represented. Lung Xing, who had always been the number 1 on the Heaven's Chosen list, had now been surpassed. Zhou Ling was incomparably excited. The army of more than 2,000 people was also so excited that they exploded. Only Wang Lang's expression was as ugly as if he had eaten feces. Previously, he had made a bet with Zhou Ling. Now that Tianyang had reached the 73rd level, he had completed the bet. Then he, the 8th on the Heaven's Chosen list, Wang Lang, would have to climb around the trial tower 3 times. Normally, it wouldn't be a big deal. Although the trial tower was known as one of the 3 treasures of Sky Blue College, not many people came. But Wang Lang glanced at the 2,000 people in the army, whose numbers were still rapidly increasing, and his entire body trembled. If he really fulfilled the terms of the bet, his reputation as Wang Lang would be ruined in an instant. As the 8th on the Heaven's Chosen list, climbing around the trial tower 3 times under the watchful eyes of thousands of people would definitely make Wang Lang lose all face. Damn Zhou Ling damn Tianyang. Wang Lang glared at Zhou Ling, and roared in his heart. However, he had completely forgotten who was the one who started the trouble first. 15 minutes later, Tianyang had also successfully destroyed the 10-peak 3rd Heaven Dao, Fire Realm sword puppets, on the 80th level. He was about to enter the final 81st level. Starting from the 72nd level, the number of sword puppets decreased the further one went. However, their strength became stronger. For Tianyang, this was undoubtedly good news to save time. And this 81st level, as the last level, was probably no longer a sword puppet. Following that, Tianyang stepped into the 81st level. On the 81st level, opposite Tianyang, a translucent youth looked at Tianyang with a surprised expression on his face, then laughed. Chapter 443. Hello, I'm Zhou Tong. The young man smiled. Tianyang's expression changed. Zhou Tong? Sword Spirit, Zhou Tong? Tianyang had heard of Zhou Tong's name when he first came to the Sky Territory and challenged the Sword Pagoda in the Night Sky City. He had the body of a sword spirit and was ranked first on the Sword Pagoda tablet many years ago. Furthermore, there were legends about him in the Sky Blue Academy, whether it was in the Outer Academy or the Inner Academy. To the many disciples of the Sky Blue Academy, Zhou Tong was undoubtedly a legendary figure. Who would have thought that this legendary figure would actually leave behind an avatar here? Tianyang could naturally tell that the translucent Zhou Tong in front of him was not Zhou Tong himself, but an ordinary avatar. Tianyang said lightly. Zhou Tong raised his eyebrows. This name is very unfamiliar. This face is also very unfamiliar. I wonder how many times you have challenged the Trial Pagoda? Zhou Tong smiled. Tianyang's expression was still calm. He looked at Zhou Tong in front of him. First time. Hearing this, Zhou Tong's pupils couldn't help but shrink as he looked at Tianyang in shock. He reached the 81st floor on his first try. Even I was left behind a few hundred streets behind you. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Hearing Zhou Tong's praise, Tianyang's expression was still calm. The Styx River sword in his hand shone with a breathtaking light. Tianyang could not be bothered to talk so much with Zhou Tong. What he wanted to do now was to defeat Zhou Tong and then go to Sky Blue College's last treasure, the Doctrine Palace, to play. TSK, I thought we could chat for a while longer. I did not expect you to be so impatient. Seeing this, Zhou Tong smiled lightly. A sharp light flashed on the long sword in his hand, and he pointed it at Tianyang. The aura of a peak level 3 Tao fire realm was released. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. Looking at Zhou Tong in front of him, his mind was spinning. This cultivation was similar to the sword puppet on the 80th floor. However, Tianyang knew that Zhou Tong's strength was definitely much stronger than the sword puppet on the 80th floor. The reason was because the person in front of him was Zhou Tong, Sky Blue College's legendary student, Zhou Tong. Body refinement at 5, clear Qi realm at 8, transformation realm at 16, Tao fire realm at 22, Sea realm at 28. Moreover, Zhou Tong was not only terrifyingly talented in martial arts, he was also extremely talented in the way of the sword. The body of the sword spirit was a physique that was innately one with the sword. When cultivating the sword, it wasn't an exaggeration to travel 10,000 miles in a day. According to legend, on the sword pagoda stele, Zhou Tong, who was at the peak of the 3rd level of the Tao fire realm, had almost reached the 7th level. In other words, in the same realm, Zhou Tong's sword Tao cultivation was about the same as the Sky Pole Sword Emperor in his previous life. If they were in the same realm, Tianyang naturally would not think highly of Zhou Tong. However, he was only at the peak level 1 Tao fire realm. Zhou Tong, on the other hand, was at the peak level 3 Tao fire realm. The difference was an entire realm. Outside the trial pagoda, countless people stared at the only shining name on the 81st floor, silently praying in their hearts. Decades ago, after sword spirit Zhou Tong passed the 81st floor of the trial pagoda, no one had passed it even once. Today, would Tianyang, who had created the highest record in history, be able to directly pass the trial pagoda? Unknowingly, all the students of the 10th hall had arrived at the trial pagoda. Most of the people from the 9th hall had also arrived. It was the same for the 1st and 2nd halls. The eyes of the people from the 10th hall were filled with hope, while those from the 9th hall were filled with hatred. It's best if you die on the 81st floor. It's best if your soul is destroyed. Wang Lang stared at the 81st floor and roared in his heart. At this moment, on the 81st floor, Tianyang and Zhou Tong moved at the same time. Myriad flower, chaos, divine sword. Zhou Tong shouted coldly. His true essence at the peak of the level 3 Tao fire realm surged out and condensed on the long sword in his hand, releasing a resplendent brilliance. In an instant, Zhou Tong's long sword seemed to split into thousands of sword shadows that charged towards Tianyang. Not bad. It actually has a trace of the power of chaos. This sword is at least a mid-grade Earth-tier martial technique. However, soul attacks are useless against me. Tianyang laughed loudly. The Styx River sword in his hand suddenly released a deep light. Styx River sword technique, 3rd sword, River of Forgetfulness. Boom! The myriad flower, chaos, divine sword, and the River of Forgetfulness collided. Even a special space like the trial pagoda trembled slightly. Billowing shockwaves swept up sand and rocks. Bang, 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 bang. The Styx River sword and Zhou Tong's long sword constantly clashed. Every time they clashed, there would be a burst of energy ripples. And in this clash of sword Tao, Tianyang did not show any signs of weakness, while Zhou Tong was steadily losing ground. How is this possible? Zhou Tong had a look of disbelief. He looked at the sharp and accurate Styx River sword in front of him and was extremely shocked. His sword cultivation was extremely powerful, and he had the body of sword spirit. Logically speaking, it should not be difficult to suppress a level 1 Tao Fire Realm student. However, the result? The dignified sword spirit Zhou Tong was suppressed by Tianyang. Tianyang's Styx River sword seemed to have grown eyes. Every strike accurately landed on the flaws in Zhou Tong's sword moves. Therefore, even though Tianyang was inferior to Zhou Tong in terms of true essence, he still forced Zhou Tong to retreat. Since I can't beat you in terms of swords, let's just fight with our sword moves. Zhou Tong snorted coldly. The true essence at the peak of the level 3 Tao Fire Realm in his body instantly exploded. A surging aura directly pushed Tianyang back. In the next moment, rays of golden light flashed across Zhou Tong's eyes. In the next moment, Zhou Tong slashed out with his sword. One sword in the sky, looking down on the heavens. Peerless Earth-class martial technique, heavenly sacred sword. Zhou Tong roared angrily. The power of the body of a sword spirit completely erupted. An extremely bright golden light condensed into a pillar of light that shot straight to the heavens. In the next moment, Zhou Tong slashed out with his long sword. An incomparably huge and dazzling sword light pierced through the void and shot straight at Tianyang. Heavenly Sacred Sword? The Heavenly Sacred Sword of the Heavenly Sacred Sword Pavilion? Interesting. Seeing this scene, Tianyang did not panic. He calmly looked at the sword light in front of him and smiled faintly. As the strongest sword cultivation sect in the Firmament territory, Tianyang naturally knew about the Heavenly Sacred Sword Pavilion. As the signature martial technique of the Heavenly Sacred Sword Pavilion, the Heavenly Sacred Sword was naturally extremely powerful. However, in front of Tianyang, no sword was stronger than him. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Tianyang whispered to himself in a low voice. Back then, when I fought with the old man of the Heavenly Sacred Sword Pavilion, there was no clear winner. Today, let's end it once and for all. Tianyang roared angrily. All of the Heavenly Sacred Sword's true essence in his body completely erupted. A force that surpassed the heavens and the earth was released. Zhou Tong's eyes immediately widened. In the next moment, the Styx River sword slashed down heavily. Chapter 444. Sky Extreme Sword Art, Third Sword Star Burial. Tianyang roared angrily as waves of true essence erupted. The Styx sword in his hand slashed down, and a sword light that was like a galaxy erupted. The Star Burial sword had the power to bury stars. Seeing this terrifying sword light, Zhou Tong's expression changed drastically. He stared at the Star Burial sword in front of him and roared in disbelief. Peerless Earth Tier Martial Technique. 6-pulse Divided Divine Sword. The long sword in his hand moved rhythmically, and the true essence of the peak third heaven of the Tao Fire Realm was completely unleashed. On the basis of the Sky's Sacred Sword, he once again erupted with an incomparably tyrannical sword move. Even Tianyang couldn't help but sigh in admiration of Zhou Tong's talent. With this talent, if his sword cultivation continued to grow at the same rate as before the Sea of Soul Realm, perhaps he really wouldn't be able to match up to this sword spirit body. However, after the Spirit Sea Realm, Tianyang had a fortuitous encounter, and his sword Tao talent instantly erupted, finally becoming a sword emperor of a generation. Therefore, this sword, in front of Tianyang, would only end up being broken. Boom, 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 boom. The Star Burial sword and the 6-pulse Divided Divine sword fiercely collided. Immediately, even this incomparably sturdy space trembled. Zhou Tong's expression couldn't be any more solemn. He had already used all his skills, but he was still unable to do anything to the first heaven of the Tao Fire Realm in front of him. Could it be that you? Zhou Tong suddenly said. At this moment, Tianyang once again slashed out with his sword, and the bridge of helplessness that carried the surging nether force shattered the majestic 6-pulse Divided Divine Sword. Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. Could it be that Zhou Tong, who had left Sky Blue College a few decades ago, still knew about him? A while ago, I heard that a sword Tao genius who is much stronger than me appeared in Sky Vault City. His name is Sky Extreme, and his title is Sword King. Zhou Tong held the Sky's sacred sword and smiled faintly. At that time, I was still unconvinced. I felt that with my sword spirit body, how could I lose to others in Sword Tao? Upon hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. The Styx sword in his hand emitted sword light, but it temporarily calmed down. And now, when I see you, I know that there's always someone stronger than you. You must be Sword King Tianji, right? Exactly. Tianyang faintly smiled. Hearing this, Zhou Tong also revealed a trace of emotion. Although your cultivation is still shallow, your cultivation in the way of the sword is only higher than mine. You can already be called the Sword King. If there comes a day when you break through to the Heaven Ascension stage, then perhaps a new Sword Emperor will appear in the Heaven continent that hasn't had a great emperor for many years. Zhou Tong smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. A new Sword Emperor? He was the emperor, so why should he call himself the new emperor? When he ascended to the Heavenly Ascension realm, it would be the day that the Tianji Sword Emperor returned. However, as a sword spirit, I'm a little indignant to be suppressed by the Sword King. Zhou Tong faintly smiled. The firmament's sacred sword in his hand once again emitted a terrifying light. Seeing this, Tianyang faintly smiled and raised the stick sword. In the next instant, the two used their movement techniques and charged forward. Using the dragon steps of the nine heavens, Tianyang's figure was like a ghost as he arrived in front of Zhou Tong in an instant. The stick's sword in his hand flashed. Stick's sword technique, third style, River of Forgetfulness. Half-step heaven rank martial technique, heavens and cliff. The two roared at the same time. In the next instant, the two long swords fiercely clashed together. Boom! A tangible ripple of energy instantly erupted, sweeping across the entire field. The Heavenly Sun Sword Saint and Heavenly Sun Sword Saint had also released all of their true essence. If news of you breaking through the Tower of Trials on your first try were to spread, as your senior brother, I would lose a lot of face. Zhou Tong grinned, said Zhou Tong with a grin. However, from the bulging veins on his forehead, it could be seen that Zhou Tong had also given it his all. As for Tianyang, he faintly smiled. After staying here for so many years, it's time for you to retire. In the next instant, millions of dragon force converged. 108 true dragon marks and one nether mark erupted at the same time. The Sky Origin True Origin was also pushed to the limit. Seeing this, Zhou Tong's expression changed slightly. Then he laughed loudly. Are we going to determine the victor? All right. In the next instant, the sword spirit body emitted endless light. Specks of starlight gathered, and Zhou Tong's aura instantly became extremely powerful. The barrier to the peak of the third heaven of the Dao Fire realm was directly broken by Zhou Tong. In the next instant, Zhou Tong directly reached the half-step sea of Soul Realm. In addition to his own sword technique and Sword Dao Profound, the current Zhou Tong had no problem dealing with an elder of Jiang Siming's level. Seeing this, Tianyang faintly smiled. Since Zhou Tong's sword spirit body had been stimulated, then he shouldn't hide his strength anymore. Martial soul talent, devouring heaven. Suddenly, the entire space of the 81st floor distorted. Endless power directly poured into Tianyang's body. Tianyang's aura also began to skyrocket. Dao Fire Realm, Second Heaven. Dao Fire Realm Peak, Second Heaven. Dao Fire Realm, Third Heaven. Stepping into this level and controlling the power of the Dao Fire Realm, Third Heaven, Tianyang didn't feel any discomfort at all. The stick's sword in his hand bloomed with a brilliant light that had never bloomed before. The terrifying killing intent that belonged to the killing sword was also completely released. Seeing this, Zhou Tong looked at Tianyang in disbelief. Then, the sky's sacred sword in his hand quietly disintegrated. What replaced it was the majestic power of the martial soul. Upper-grade Earth rank martial soul, star. Zhou Tong laughed loudly. In the next moment, the long sword in his hand was immediately covered with specks of starlight. Heavenly cycle of stars for my use. Quasi-heaven rank martial technique, star sky splitter sword. Zhou Tong roared wildly. Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and revealed a trace of surprise for the first time. Then he smiled slightly. Zhou Xing's inheritance is still here. In the next moment, a familiar wave was released from Tianyang's hand. It was the ultimate move that belonged to the Tianji Sword Emperor, the Heavenly Sword Technique. The third sword, Star Annihilation Sword, slashed out. Star Sky Splitter and Star Annihilation Sword collided violently. Boom! A brilliant light exploded. In the blink of an eye, it filled the entire space of the 81st floor. In the end, the Star Annihilation Sword exploded with a terrifying power and shattered the Star Sky Splitter Sword. Tianyang smiled faintly. Under Zhou Tong's shocked gaze, he completely destroyed the star's sky splitter sword. With a casual slash of the sword, he completely destroyed Zhou Tong's body. Following the sword spirit's defeat, Tianyang also successfully broke through to the final 81st floor, and the title of Sword King was completely confirmed. In the next moment, the energy mark that Zhou Tong left behind once again revealed a human figure. He looked at Tianyang with a complicated expression and cupped his fists. Chapter 445. As Zhou Tong's voice rang out, the entire trial tower shuddered. Starting from the first level, a pillar of light crazily rose. As the number of levels increased, the volume of the pillar of light also rapidly expanded. Following that, a terrifying pillar of light pierced through the Tower of Trials and shot into the sky. Under the sun, a dazzling pillar of light replaced the sun's radiance and illuminated the entire inner court. Seeing this scene, the thousands of people in front of the Tower of Trials began to cheer wildly. The new students didn't know, but the older students knew clearly. This was a scene that would only occur when someone broke through the entire Tower of Trials. Master is invincible. Ling Yuhan jumped up. Flying Sword, who was beside her, was also extremely excited. It was his first time challenging the Tower of Trials, and he had broken through the entire Tower of Trials. Tianyang had undoubtedly created a legend that no one could surpass. Following Ling Yuhan's cheer, the crowd of close to 10,000 people also began to cheer crazily. Previously, the number one on the Heaven's Chosen list, Lung Xing, had challenged for many years, but he had only reached the 72nd level. Tianyang, on the other hand, had broken through the entire Tower of Trials for the first time. Without a doubt, Tianyang's name would be engraved in the annals of Sky Blue College's history. It could be said that his name would go down in history. Even the people from the Ninth Hall temporarily put down the hatred in their hearts and began to shout wildly. They were not shouting wildly for Tianyang, but for the legend. Only at the front, Wang Lang lowered his head. Hearing the cheers of countless people behind him, he gritted his teeth. Damn, Tianyang, what? You said you don't want to do it? At this moment, Zhou Tong looked at Tianyang in front of him with a face of astonishment, a look of disbelief. According to tradition, after the new person who challenged the Tower of Trials defeated the old guardian of the 81st level, they would leave behind a trace of energy imprint and replace him. Zhou Tong had also come here like this. However, from Tianyang's mouth, Zhou Tong only heard an incomparably straightforward rejection. That's right. How troublesome would that be? I'm not after this bit of fame. Tianyang curled his lips and said. Hearing this, Zhou Tong was speechless. What kind of words were these? Ordinary people might not be able to reach the 81st level even if they put their lives on the line. In the end, you reached the 81st level, defeated the Guardian, and gave up the opportunity to make a name for yourself? However, although there is no precedent, this is your personal matter. It's not like it's a chore. Why are you rejecting it? Zhou Tong was speechless. How difficult was it to reach the 81st floor of the tower? Even Zhou Tong had to wait for several decades. Previously, there were seniors who had been waiting for hundreds of years. How could Tianyang not do such a leisurely job? What Zhou Tong didn't know was that Tianyang's current personality was like this. He definitely wouldn't touch anything that didn't benefit him at all, let alone volunteer work. After knowing the strength of the heavenly Yin mountain branch in the eastern part of the firmament territory, Tianyang only wanted to get rid of it as soon as possible. Making a name for himself now was just courting death. Even Xiao Weiyuan knew his name and what he looked like. Tianyang didn't believe that the White Shadow didn't know. Then, you have to accept the reward for passing the 81st floor. Otherwise, I'll have a hard time with the dean. Zhou Tong said helplessly. Hearing this, Tianyang's interest was piqued. What reward? 108 drops of Sea of Soul Realm True Dragon Blood Essence from the Golden Dragon Clan. It's extremely beneficial for body refining. And a Peerless Earth-class martial technique, Sky's Sacred Sword. Zhou Tong said. Then, with a flash of silver light and a slight fluctuation in the space, two treasures appeared in Zhou Tong's hands. Seeing this, Tianyong raised his eyebrows. If these two treasures were placed outside, it would definitely cause a bloody fight. But Sky Blue College directly used it as a reward for passing the floor. However, Tianyong also knew that Sky Blue College had a transcendent status in the firmament territory. It wasn't a big deal for them to take out these two treasures. Okay, I'll take them. Tianyong didn't stand on ceremony. He directly took them and put them into his space bag. If he didn't take the reward that belonged to him, Tianyong would be a fool. Then, Tianyong strode into the space door that led to the outside world. Zhou Tong, on the other hand, walked back to the energy mark he had left with a speechless face and disappeared. With a flash of silver light, Tianyong directly appeared outside. However, looking at the tens of thousands of people outside, Tianyong was immediately dumbfounded. There were only 20 to 30,000 people from the 10 halls combined. Among them, there was no lack of arrogant old students who had stayed in the inner yard for a few years. In the end, why were these people all gathered here? The legend who passed the trial tower is here. At this moment, seeing Tianyong walk out of the trial tower, the crowd cheered and rushed directly toward him. Seeing this, Tianyong was completely dumbfounded. Fortunately, Zhou reacted quickly and blocked all of them. Wait, Tianyong is from the 10th hall. Are you guys trying to kidnap him? Zhou said loudly with her hands on her hips. Hearing this, the crowd also reacted and retreated. Part of it was because of Zhou nickname, Violent Lowly. If they really pushed her too far, that Violent Lowly of the past might make a comeback. By the way, Wang Lang, before this is Tianyong. I've heard so much about you. Before Zhou could finish, Wang Lang walked up and said with a smile. Hearing this, Tianyong frowned slightly. Who was this person? His smile was so fake, as if he was afraid that others wouldn't recognize him. When I saw your glorious feat of passing the trial tower outside, I was shocked. Now, I finally see you in person. Wang Lang smiled hypocritically. Hearing this, Zhou was stunned. When had Wang Lang, this hedonistic son of a rich family, ever been so polite? Then, I'm excited to see you. Can we spar? Wang Lang smiled. However, when he read the last few words, his expression suddenly turned cold. A silver light flashed in his hand, and a dagger appeared in Wang Lang's hand. In the next moment, he directly stabbed toward Tianyong's neck. How dare you make me attack in front of so many people? Die, Tianyong! Wang Lang roared in his heart and released a murderous intent. Seeing this, countless people were shocked beyond words. No one expected Wang Lang to attack at this moment. At this moment, even Zhou who was the closest to Tianyong, could not stop Wang Lang's actions. Everyone's face turned pale. At such a close distance, and at such a fast speed, Tianyong, who had just passed the trial tower, would definitely not be able to block it. Seeing that the dagger was about to pierce Tianyong's neck, a cold look flashed across Tianyong's eyes. He did not know this person at all. However, the murderous intent in his eyes could not be faked. It was obvious that this person really wanted to kill him. Since that was the case, Tianyong did not have to go easy on him. Those who kill will be killed by others. In the next moment, Tianyong directly grabbed Wang Lang's right hand and twisted it, twisting Wang Lang's arm in an abnormal manner. Then he kicked out. Bang! Wang Lang spat out blood. Before the crowd could react, Tianyong directly snatched Wang Lang's dagger and stabbed it into Wang Lang's head. Puffed. Blood spurted out and brain matter flew everywhere. His inner yuan vibrated slightly, and Wang Lang's fragile soul immediately disintegrated, turning into dust fragments. Chapter 446. Wang Lang was dead. The crowd swallowed their saliva when they saw Wang Lang lying on the ground with a dagger in his head. He was bleeding profusely after being subdued by Tianyong. Their eyes were filled with shock. Wang Lang was ranked 8th on the prodigy roll. He had reached the 3rd heaven of the Tao Fire Realm and was extremely powerful. As for Tianyong, although his combat power was equally powerful, he had just passed the test of the 81st level. It was impossible for his combat power not to be weakened. Even so, Tianyang still managed to block Wang Lang's attack and kill him instantly. Countless people were astonished by the terrifying power that was displayed before them. After being shocked by Tianyang's power, the crowd was shocked by another thing: Wang Lang's identity. Wang Lang was from the first hall and was one of the few people in the top 10 of the prodigy roll. He was from the Wang family, and the head of the Wang family was the deputy hall master of the first hall. The deputy hall master was extremely powerful, not to mention the first hall. The Wang family was even more powerful than the Jiang family. On the other hand, Tianyang had killed the eldest son of the Wang family in public. Not only had he challenged the rules of the Sky Blue Academy, but he had also slapped the Wang family in the face. He's finished. He offended the Wang family. Tianyang is finished. The crowd sighed. He had just become a legend that should have been recorded in the history of Sky Blue College. However, he offended the Wang family the moment he came out. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that it was all because of Wang Lang. However, would the Wang family be reasonable with him? In the world of martial arts, the strong were respected, the weak were bullied, and the strong were lawless. As a disciple of the Wang family, Wang Lang was usually domineering. No one dared to control him, let alone kill him. It was obvious that the Wang family would be furious. Tianyang would definitely die. Let's go. If we stay here for too long, we might get into trouble. Some people could not help but whisper among themselves. Then they reached a consensus: stay as far away from Tianyang as possible. In the next moment, the crowd of more than 10,000 people dispersed. Countless people had terrified looks on their faces as they scrambled to leave the place. Even the experts on the prodigy roll scattered like birds and beasts. Even though they were talented and had great potential in the inner sanctum, they did not dare to offend the Wang clan. At this moment, they didn't even have the courage to stay here. Not long after, the crowd of over 10,000 people dispersed, leaving only Tianyang, Flying Sword, Ling Yuhan, and Zhou Ling are in front of the Tower of Trials. There was also a dead man, Wang Lang. Tianyang, you've killed Wang Lang. You'll definitely incur the wrath of the Wang family. You should hurry back to the 10th palace. The Xian Palace should be able to protect you. Zhou Ling said worriedly. Ling Yuhan and Flying Sword's faces also changed. The Wang clan could not be compared to the 4 great clans of Night Dome City. The head of the Wang clan, the deputy palace master of the 10th palace, was at the peak of the half-step sea of Soul Realm. He was only a step away from the first level of the sea of Soul Realm. With such strength, he would definitely be an overlord in the inner sanctum. Normally, no one would dare to offend him. However, Tianyang had directly killed the Wang clan's young master. At that time, the Wang clan's wrath would definitely not be something that Tianyang, who was at the peak of the first level of the Dao Fire Realm, could contend against. More than 10 years ago, a genius ranked 3rd on the prodigy roll accidentally killed a pet of the Wang clan's second young master. And that genius ranked 3rd on the prodigy roll also disappeared after this incident. It was only a few years later that someone saw that person's figure in the spiritual martial region, and that person's cultivation was crippled, and he was reduced to a coolie miner. It could be seen how ruthless the Wang clan was. Therefore, Zhou Ling's worry was not without reason. However, Tianyang only smiled faintly. What are you afraid of? When I was at the transformation realm, I even dared to offend the 4 great clans. Do you think I'll be afraid of the Wang clan now that I've reached the Dao Fire Realm? Tianyang smiled faintly. Then, he let Zhou Ling lead the way to the last treasure, the Dao Palace. The Void Lightning was used to temper one's cultivation and body. The Tower of Trials was used to test one's strength. The Dao Palace was used to comprehend the Dao. Hearing this, Zhou Ling also understood that Tianyang had made up his mind. She could only sigh and lead the 3 into the Dao Palace. The Dao Palace also required a lot of contribution points. However, Tianyang and the other 2 had just passed the Tower of Trials and had plenty of contribution points. Naturally, they did not care about the expenditure. As for Zhou Ling she watched the 3 enter the Dao Palace and hurried to the 10th palace. Only the 10th palace master could protect Tianyang. First Palace, Wang clan. What did you say? Lang was killed by someone. A tall and gloomy middle-aged man glared at the reporting student from the First Palace and shouted angrily. Hearing this, the student trembled, but continued, "That's right, I saw it with my own eyes." After Wang Lang attacked Tianyang, Tianyang immediately counterattacked and stabbed Wang Lang's dagger into, "Shut up." At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly roared, "How could my Lang attack? Even if he did, it's definitely Tianyang's fault. Didn't you come here to report for resources? These 10 spiritual origin pills are for you." The middle-aged man snorted, and 10 spiritual origin pills flew out. Then, his figure disappeared from the hall. The person only trembled as he received the 10 spiritual origin pills. His face was filled with ecstasy. If one looked closely, they would be able to recognize that this person was the one who cheered the loudest when Tianyang passed the Tower Trials. This Dao Palace is really good. Sword Dao is useless to me, but it's very helpful for Thunder Dao and Body Refinement Dao. Tianyang smiled faintly and continued to cultivate. At this moment, in the meeting hall of Sky Blue College, the First Palace Vice Palace Master was going crazy. "What did you say? You don't want me to kill Tianyang? The one who died is my son." Vice Palace Master Wang roared. Hearing this, the Jiang clan representative and the 10th Palace Master sneered. "That's your son's own fault. I heard about it. Wang Lang made a bet with Zhou Ling, from our palace. If Tianyang reached the 20th level, he would climb 3 laps around the Tower of Trials. In other words, Wang Lang might have attacked Tianyang in a fit of anger. In fact, Tianyang was just retaliating." The 10th Palace Master said. Hearing this, Vice Palace Master Wang's face darkened. He glared at the 10th Palace Master and roared, "I have the First Palace behind me." Hearing this, the Jiang clan representative and the 10th Palace Master's faces changed. Then, their expressions turned ugly. The 3 of them began to quarrel intensely over the issue of Heavenly Sunday. In the end, they came to a conclusion. Chapter 447. Tianyang sat in his own residence and looked calmly at Zhou Linger, who was giving an announcement in front of him. Ling Yuhan and Flying Sword, who were beside him, were already so furious that they almost wanted to tear the person in front of them apart. "This is too much." Young Master was clearly defending himself. How could he do this? Although he's not dead, he's asking the young lord to seek death. "No, I'm going to tear down the 10th hall." It was clearly Wang Lang's fault. How could he blame Master? Flying Sword and Ling Yuhan were both furious. They glared at Zhou Linger in front of them, and their eyes were almost spitting fire. They were enraged because of Sky Blue Academy's judgment against Heavenly Sun. Zhou Linger looked at the 2 people who were filled with righteous indignation. She smiled bitterly and glanced at Tianyang. "Tianyang, what are you going to do?" Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. His expression was extremely calm, but Zhou Linger could feel the fury hidden under that calm surface. Obviously, this time, Tianyang was really furious. The matter was simple. In the meeting hall, Deputy Hall Master Wang was extremely furious. He even used the first hall and the Wang family to pressure the Jiang family and the 10th hall. However, for some reason, the Jiang family did not hesitate to fall out with the Wang family and supported Tianyang. Coupled with the power of the 10th hall master, the Wang family had no choice but to compromise. However, this compromise was also extremely unfair to the Heavenly Sun realm, because the result of the compromise was that Tianyang had to carry out a mission with a 100% mortality rate. It was called a death mission. This mission had been done by those who were half a step to the Dao Fire realm, those in the first heaven of the Dao Fire realm, those in the second heaven of the Dao Fire realm, and those on the Prodigy roll. Those in the top 20 of the Prodigy roll, those in the top 10 of the Prodigy roll, and even the former third on the Prodigy roll. However, these people were all dead. He had died in this mission. Therefore, even if Sky Blue College increased the mission reward time and time again, and raised the mission reward to a terrifying level, no one chose to do it. After all, they did not want to die. The result of this judgment was that Tianyang was to carry out this death mission. If he did not complete it, he would not be allowed to return. In other words, The Wang family was beating around the bush to send Tianyang to his death. What should I do? What? Tianyang was Tianyang. This was the cruel world of the world martial arts world. The strong was of high, while the weak were of the weak, of the powerful of the Wang family. As for himself, he had broken the rules set by them and killed a member of an aristocratic family. As such, he was punished by the Wang clan. A death missions of the prodigy role. Tianyang was courting death by doing this mission. Sigh, if only we, the 10th Hall, were just a little stronger and were in the top 5 of the 10 halls, we would not have let the Wang family be trampled on. Zhou Linger gritted her teeth as she spoke. Her body was trembling, and her eyes were misty. At the end of her speech, tears fell and dripped onto the ground. It was all because they were weak. The 10th Hall was weak, so they were trampled on. If not for the Jiang family's help this time, Tianyang would have been tortured to death by the Wang family. Zhou Linger tried her best to wipe away her tears, but they continued to flow. In the end, Zhou Linger burst into tears. The 10th Hall, which she had risked her life to protect, was still trampled on by the strong in the end. Seeing Zhou Linger bawling her eyes out, Dao Feiyang and Ling Yuhan both fell silent. The anger they felt towards Zhou Ling had also diminished significantly. This was not something that Zhou Linger alone could change, not even with the help of the entire 10th Hall. The only thing they could do was to become stronger. Stronger. So strong that they could topple the entire Wang family. Senior sister, don't worry. Tianyang, said that I would bring the 10th Hall back to its peak. I will definitely do it. Tianyang came before Zhou Linger and patted her on the back. Hearing that, Zhou Linger stopped crying for the time being. She glanced at Tianyang and threw herself at him, tears streaming down her face. Tianyang hugged Zhou Linger until she could no longer hold on and fell asleep. During this time, Ling Yuhan, who was especially jealous, did not say a word. All right, go do what you need to do. Who cares if it's a death mission? Have you ever seen me suffer? Tianyang placed Zhou Linger on his bed, looked at Flying Sword and Ling Yuhan, and chuckled. Hearing this, Dao Feiyang and Ling Yuhan nodded. They both returned to the cultivation room and began to cultivate. They had never been so motivated before. Everyone was cultivating as if their lives depended on it. Even the other members of the 10th Hall were doing the same. In the past few days, the members of the 10th Hall would occasionally be taught by Tianyang and benefited a lot. Now that Tianyang was in trouble, they could empathize with him. The Wang family might not have thought that they would offend the entire 10th Hall by dealing with a genius disciple. Moreover, it was not an ordinary offense, but a blood feud. Sitting cross-legged in the best cultivation room, Tianyang read the information about the death mission. The location of the mission is not in the firmament territory, but the realm of Linwu. Seeing the unfamiliar location of the mission, Tianyang could not help but be stunned. Was this death mission so powerful? It was actually in the realm of Linwu. Sky Blue College's reach was too far. However, as he read on, Tianyang felt relieved. This was a common mission for many forces. However, in many forces, it was just a death mission that no one cared about. The realm of Linwu, the nest of 1,000 demons. In the nest of 1,000 demons, there are extraterrestrial demons from tens of thousands of years ago. Only then will they be able to clear it, Tianyang muttered to himself. Looking at the nest of 1,000 demons, he frowned as if he had thought of something. Then, looking inside his clothes, Tianyang realized that the moon armor, an upper-grade precious weapon, had almost been scrapped after the trial tower. The nest of 1,000 demons was the place where the bright moon cultivators were contaminated with demon chi. However, the bright moon cultivators were people from hundreds of years ago. He did not know if they were still alive, but the moon armor was left behind. The bright moon cultivators are really lucky to be able to escape from a place like the nest of 1,000 demons. Tianyang smiled gently. He did not care much about the death mission that had been forcefully assigned to him. If he had seen the mission for the nest of 1,000 demons in the mission hall of the inner yard, he would have accepted it without caring about the death mission. The Wang family had saved Tianyang a lot of effort. However, Tianyang was still furious with the Wang family. He would not let them off just because of this. I have 7 days to prepare. After 7 days, I must go to the nest of 1,000 demons. Chapter 448. A ray of light flashed across the sky and landed slowly on the plains around a city. Tianyang jumped down from the swift-winged eagle and blew a whistle. The swift-winged eagle flew back to Sky Blue College. The swift-winged eagle was Sky Blue College's spirit pet. This time, it was only here to send him to the realm of Lingwu. Due to the deterrence of Sky Sun's dragon might, the swift-winged vulture changed its route and arrived outside the city. According to the original plan, the Wang family wanted the swift-winged eagle to carry Tianyang into the nest of 1,000 devils and send him to his death. TSK, the Wang family is really going all out to kill me. The value of this swift-winged eagle is not low, but they are willing to sacrifice it just to kill me. Tianyang smiled coldly. Then, he retracted his dragon might and walked slowly toward the city in the distance. This was the realm of Lingwu, and the city was the closest to the nest of 1,000 devils. Demon Suppression City. Tianyang did not waste the 7 days of preparation. Although he did not break through to the second firmament of the Dao Fire realm, his combat strength had increased by a lot. Tianyang refined the 108 drops of True Dragon Blood Essence into the 108 True Dragon patterns on the True Dragon Elixir, making his True Dragon body even stronger. Tianyang could now fight against a third firmament of the Dao Fire realm with his physical body alone. If he encountered a peak third firmament of the Dao Fire realm, he could still win. If Zhen Yuan was added into the equation, an ordinary peak third sky of Dao Fire realm wouldn't be Heavenly Sun's opponent at all. Only first-rate geniuses or half-step C of Soul Realm cultivators could make Heavenly Sun pay attention to them. With thousands of thoughts in his mind, Tianyang stepped into the Demon Suppression City. Demon Suppression City. The city covered an area of 10 miles. Although the Demon Suppression City was close to the nest of 1,000 devils and had a strategic location, it was also very prosperous because of the nest of 1,000 devils. After all, the nest of 10,000 devils didn't only contain demonic chi. In the surroundings, there were also many demonic beasts that were born from the demonic chi. These demonic beasts were influenced by the demonic chi, and their strength was extraordinary. If he could kill it, then the fur, scales, internal organs, and blood of the magical beast would be much better than ordinary magical beasts. Naturally, the value of these treasures would also skyrocket. There really are quite a lot of people. Tianyang looked at the bustling scene of people coming and going in the demon-suppressing city and smiled faintly. He retracted his aura and walked in. The mission scroll of Sky Blue College's inner courtyard was from who knows how many decades ago. Most of the information was outdated, so it was better to gather some information first. If we can settle this within 2 weeks, we can make it in time for the competition. At that time, we can kill a few people from the Wang clan to liven things up. Tianyang smiled faintly. However, it will be extremely difficult to destroy the nest of 1,000 devils. The nest of 1,000 devils didn't exist in Tianyang's previous life. However, to be able to survive the great destruction of civilization, the nest of 1,000 devils was definitely extraordinary. If he wasn't careful, with his weak cultivation at the peak of the first heaven of the Dao Fire realm, he would have died long ago. Destroy the nest of 1,000 devils? What a joke. Kid, before you spout such arrogant words, you should consider yourself first. Now, get out of my way. At this moment, a sneer came from behind him. An extremely arrogant voice rang out. Tianyang noticed that when this voice rang out, the surrounding people all retreated in horror. Tianyang's eyebrows twitched slightly. At this moment, a strong wind came from behind him. Bang! Tianyang didn't even turn his head. His right hand grabbed the long sword that was attacking him from behind. His true dragon body showed its power. That extremely sharp, quasi-spiritual longsword was no match for his true dragon body. The 108 true dragon patterns shone faintly. In the next moment, the heavenly sun gently bent, and the quasi-spiritual artifact, longsword, directly exploded. Boom! The fragments of the spiritual weapon scattered in all directions, causing countless people's expressions to change drastically as they frantically retreated. However, under Tianyang's control, they all landed on the ground without harming anyone. What? You actually dare to destroy my weapon? You're courting death. When the person behind him saw that his long sword had been destroyed, his expression immediately became furious. In the demon-suppressing city, there's actually someone who doesn't give my Sioux family face. How dare you offend a member of the Sioux clan? Die. That person roared angrily. True essence condensed in his hand, and the true essence of the first heaven of the Tao fire realm erupted. Peerless, profound-ranked martial technique, rock-shattering fist, an aura that was countless times sharper and fiercer than before surged over. Tianyang's eyes also turned cold. If an ordinary essence transformation realm cultivator was hit by this punch, they would either die or be crippled. He just didn't make way. Yet he was so vicious. This road was so wide. Why did he have to walk on the road that Tianyang was walking on? Tianyang's expression turned slightly cold. He turned around and didn't use any true essence. He only relied on the strength of his physical body to block this punch. Immediately after, Tianyang directly grabbed him with a grappling hand. Then, he threw him flying and heavily smashed him to the ground. Bang! A loud sound rang out, and the green bricks on the road shattered one after another. As for that person, he was also smashed to the point that his blood and chi surged and his face flushed red. Bastard! How dare you humiliate me? Suwon, die! That person roared angrily and immediately stood up. In the next moment, a sharp light flashed in his hand as he charged towards Tianyang again. Scram! Tianyang shouted coldly. His voice was like thunder, causing that person's body to stiffen on the spot. This shout contained a vast amount of power. If he wanted to kill him, he didn't even need to move. Just a shout would be enough to kill him. Feeling the power from this shout, Suwon's expression became uncertain. When did such a strong person appear in this demon-suppressing city? He looked like he was only 16 years old. At this moment, Tianyang had the time to size up this person. Red lips, white teeth, and wearing a long robe. He looked rather delicate and had the bearing of an elegant young master. However, in a short exchange, just now, this person's performance didn't match this young master's appearance. Who are you? What business do you have in my demon-suppressing city? Suwon looked at Tianyang and said coldly. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. He couldn't be bothered to reply. He walked around Suwon and walked forward. From a look in his eyes, it could be seen that this fellow was only forced by his own strength to not attack again. If his strength was just a little bit weaker, perhaps this elegant young master would have shed all pretense of cordiality and attacked again. Tianyang had nothing to say to such a person. Seeing Tianyang's actions, Suwon's face turned ashen. As the second young master of the Sioux family, he had always been pampered. When had he been ignored like this? In addition to the situation where he was easily dealt with when he attacked earlier, Suwon wished he could crush his teeth from clenching them. Umph! Suwon turned his head and glanced resentfully at Tianyang's back. You came to demon-suppressing city for nothing more than the nest of 1,000 demons. Chapter 449. They arrived at a tavern. Tianyang went to a corner alone and sat down. He knew that he could only obtain more information in a tavern with all sorts of people. Most of the information came from the mouths of these people. Sir, what would you like? At this moment, a waiter walked up to Tianyang and asked respectfully. Upon hearing that, Tianyang said, Give me a bottle of Qingyuan wine. The older, the better. Hearing this, the waiter's face revealed a trace of surprise. Then he nodded. Okay. Tianyang opened up his hearing and began to listen to the middle-aged men who had been killing in the nest of 1,000 demons for many years. Their bodies were more or less tainted with demonic qi. This demonic qi did not affect them much under normal circumstances. However, under such circumstances, it became an important factor for Tianyang to identify them. Have you heard? The demonic qi in the nest of 1,000 demons has been rioting again. What? Rioting again? How many times has there been rioting this month? A few years ago, it was rare for there to be rioting. Yes, once or twice, the number of demonic beasts will increase, and we can hunt them better. However, if there are too many rioting, the demonic beasts will become too strong. Now, even a second heaven of Tao Fire Realm, like me, can only be careful when I enter. A first heaven of Tao Fire Realm will definitely die. The middle-aged men, with stubble on their faces and scars on their backs, said heartily as they drank. Upon hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Rioting? It seemed like he had encountered a bad time. At this moment, the waiter came to Tianyang with a bottle of Qingyuan wine. "Sir, your Qingyuan wine costs 10 mid-grade spiritual stones per bottle." Upon hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. 10 mid-grade spiritual stones? We drank this wine in the past. It only cost 1 mid-grade spiritual stone. However, Tianyang did not hesitate. With a flick of his finger, his interspatial bag moved, and 1,000 low-grade spiritual stones flew to the waiter. The waiter hurriedly caught them, kept them, and left. At this moment, Tianyang smiled and poured himself a cup of Qingyuan wine. After finishing it in one gulp, he stood up. "Yes, that's the smell." Tianyang smiled, took the Qingyuan wine, and walked to the side of the group of people who looked like mercenaries. "Everyone, may I ask what's going on with this riot? I just came to Demon Suppressing City, so I don't know anything." Tianyang held the Qingyuan wine and said to the middle-aged men who were chatting. Hearing this, the group of middle-aged men were slightly stunned. They all looked at Tianyang. When they saw his overly young face, they all revealed looks of surprise. "Kid, how old are you? Was she even 18 years old? Why did you come to the nest of myriad demons to die?" The middle-aged man in the lead was not polite at all. He said loudly, "This is not a place where transformed essence realm cultivators can step in." Hearing this, the other middle-aged men nodded and laughed. "Kid, you should go back to where you came from. The nest of myriad demons is not a place where you can come." Then, the entire table began to laugh loudly. Tianyang was not angry. He smiled and placed the Qingyuan wine on the table. "Then, I'll use this Qingyuan wine to ask for the price of the item." Looking at the Qingyuan wine, everyone was stunned as they looked at the Qingyuan wine in amazement. This Qingyuan wine was not an ordinary wine. In this tavern, it was considered a high-end wine. It was the specialty wine of the realm of Spirit Martial. However, the price was also frighteningly expensive. Such a small bottle, at most 2 to 3 small cups, cost 10 mid-grade spiritual stones, which was equivalent to 1,000 low-grade spiritual stones. Although they had been fighting in the nest of myriad demons for so long, they did not have much to use. What they drank and bragged was only 1,000 gold coins for a barrel of ale. It could not be compared to the Qingyuan wine that cost 1,000 low-grade spiritual stones. It's Qingyuan wine. I didn't expect this kid to have the money to buy Qingyuan wine. I still remember the feeling of drinking Qingyuan wine the last time. It was so refreshing. Although it was spicy, drinking a cup was refreshing. I heard that this Qingyuan wine has some auxiliary effects. This kid has hidden his strength well. Seeing the Qingyuan wine, everyone was silent for a moment. Then, an intense discussion broke out. The leader glanced at the remaining half bottle of Qingyuan wine and frowned as he said, "Even if you have Qingyuan wine, the nest of 10,000 devils is still as dangerous. We kill demons to protect humans. How can we let a weakling like you die in a nest of myriad demons?" "The wine is good, but we don't need it," said the leader. On his face, there was a scar that ran from the left side of his forehead to the right side of his chin. Although it had already healed, the scar that was left behind was still scary. However, the words that came out of the fierce middle-aged man's mouth stunned Tianyang. Shouldn't this bar be filled with ordinary mercenaries? Why was this middle-aged man acting so righteous and righteous? Yes, the leader is right. We, the demon-killing mercenary group, are there to protect humans. How can we let this kid die? Although the Qingyuan wine is delicious, human life is more important. Little brother, you should go back. Upon hearing the middle-aged man's words, the crowd burst into laughter. Tianyang was stunned once again. It was fine if one person was so righteous, But why was everyone in this group like that? Demon-killing mercenary group? This name was too domineering. At this moment, the leader with the scar said again, "Even if you use the Qingyan wine to tempt us, it is useless. A young man like you is not old enough to come to this place." The middle-aged man with the scar said loudly. Hearing this, Tianyong smiled bitterly. Why was this group of people so difficult to deal with? However, Tianyong still insisted. "I'm just asking." Hearing this, the middle-aged man with the scar laughed bitterly. Looking at this young man's expression, it seemed that he would not leave until he got to the bottom of this. Since this was the case, the middle-aged man took a deep breath and said, "Then let's compete. Then, compete with me. If you can defeat me, then I will answer you." Hearing this, everyone smiled. From their point of view, since the leader had said this, it was time for this young man to go back. In this demon-suppressing city, there were not many people who could defeat their leader. This young man with delicate skin was definitely not one of them. "I see." Hearing this, Tianyong smiled and stepped forward. Seeing this, the middle-aged man laughed. His true origin, which was at the peak of the second heaven of Dao Fire Realm, exploded. In the next moment, Tianyong pointed with his finger. Boom! The middle-aged man flew out like a cannonball. He smashed through many tables before coming to a stop. However, the commotion was seen by many people. In the pub, almost everyone turned their heads in shock and looked at Tianyong, who had sent the middle-aged man flying with one finger. As for the other members of the demon-killing mercenary group, their mouths were wide open. One could almost stuff a duck egg into them. This young man was actually so strong. At this moment, the middle-aged man got up in a daze. When he saw Tianyong's smiling face, his heart trembled. Tianyong smiled and said, "Now, I can ask around." Chapter 450. With one finger, he sent the famous leader of the demon-killing mercenary group flying. Seeing this scene, everyone in the tavern sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at Tianyong in disbelief. This was simply too shocking. If the one who did this was an old man at the third heaven of the Dao Fire Realm, they might not say anything. However, the one who did this was a young man who looked like he was not even 20 years old. Everyone was shocked, but Tianyong calmly retracted his finger. His current physical strength was comparable to the peak of the half-step sea of Soul Realm. If there was any remarkable ability that could be used with his physical body, he could fight against a half-step sea of Soul Realm expert. However, there was no such thing. However, Tianyong's physical strength could still fight against a peak of the third heaven of the Dao Fire Realm. Now, he did not need to use any strength to deal with a peak of the second heaven of the Dao Fire Realm. However, even so, the crowd did not know. They looked at Tianyong with astonishment. This young man actually sent the leader of the demon-killing mercenary group, who was at the peak of the second heaven of the Dao Fire Realm, flying with one finger. Didn't that mean that this young man's strength was so strong that everyone here could not compare to him? Thinking of this, some people's faces showed that they could not accept it. As for the others, they were even more shocked and added fuel to the fire. At this moment, the leader of the mercenary group, the middle-aged man with a scar, stood up and came to his senses. "Sorry, I misunderstood you just now. Little brother's strength is much stronger than mine." The middle-aged man with a scar scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Previously, he had been trying his best to persuade Tianyong not to inquire about the nest of 1,000 devils. In the end, Tianyong sent him flying with one finger. The others did not know and thought that the middle-aged man with the scar had underestimated his opponent. However, only he knew clearly. He definitely did not underestimate his opponent at all. However, even so, Tianyong still sent him flying with ease. With that strength, if he wanted to kill him, it would be extremely easy. It was as easy as blowing off dust. Even our leader was sent flying by a single finger. This youngster, no, little brother's cultivation is simply terrifying. Although the demon-subduing city had a domineering name, it was only a small city at the border of the realm of Lingwu. The peak of the second level of the Dao Fire Realm was already one of the few experts in this small city, but Tianyong actually sent a peak of the second level of the Dao Fire Realm flying with a single finger. For a moment, everyone put away their previous contempt for Tianyang. It's nothing. It's just a small trick. If Uncle had made a move, he definitely wouldn't have been sent flying so easily. Tianyang smiled modestly. However, these modest words weren't modest at all in the eyes of these people. How could it be so easy? In other words, the dignified demon-killing mercenary group leader would be sent flying by you no matter what? Everyone was speechless, and the leader laughed out loud. It's all right, it's all right. Little brother's strength is great. I was presumptuous just now. After hearing this, everyone in the bar looked at Tianyang from contempt to admiration. In the Sky Continent, strength was respected. Although Tianyang was young, he was so powerful that he naturally received everyone's admiration. However, the Heavenly Son himself, did not care about this false reputation. He looked to the scar-faced, middle-aged man and asked, "In that case, can you tell me what is going on with the nest of 10,000 demons and the riot now?" Hearing this, the scarred, middle-aged man nodded and let Tianyang sit on the seat that originally belonged to him. Then, he said, "Let me introduce myself. My name is Feng Isa, and I am the leader of the demon-killing mercenary group. My strength is at the peak of the second level of the Tao Fire Realm." Feng Isa smiled. Hearing this, the few mercenaries beside him laughed as well. The leader is fooling us again. Who in the demon-suppressing city doesn't know that the leader can fight above his level? An ordinary Tao Fire Realm cultivator at the third level would find it difficult to defeat the leader, let alone someone at the peak of the second level of the Tao Fire Realm. After being exposed, Feng Yi's face revealed a look of uneasiness. However, when he looked at Tianyang, he suddenly understood. Wasn't the peak of the second level of the Tao Fire Realm and the third level of the Tao Fire Realm the same? He was still fated to be defeated by this young man in one move. However, this young man was so young, yet he had such strength. He really didn't know what kind of powerful force was behind him. "May I ask, what is your cultivation level?" Feng Isa smiled. He was slightly unconvinced. If this young man's cultivation level was higher than his, he wouldn't admit defeat so easily. After all, those who could fight above their level in the Tao Fire Realm were all geniuses without exception. As a genius, Feng Isa was naturally very proud and arrogant. Hearing this, how could Tianyang not see through this mercenary group leader's thoughts? He smiled lightly and released his true Yuan aura, the peak of the first level of the Tao Fire Realm. Sensing the strength of this aura, Feng Isa's face suddenly stiffened. This young man was only at the peak of the first level of the Tao Fire Realm. For a young man who was not even 18 years old, this might be an extremely powerful achievement. However, previously he had seen a peak of the second level of the Tao Fire Realm flying with a finger. He could fight against himself at the third level of the Tao Fire Realm. "Young hero, you are indeed a genius of the age. I have been presumptuous." Feng Yi's old face revealed a trace of shame as he cupped his fists and bowed. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled. "It's nothing. Speaking of which, what is this nest of 1,000 devils and the demonic aura riot?" Hearing this, Feng Yi's face also became serious. It turned out that even the people in the demon-suppressing city didn't know the origin of the nest of 1,000 devils. They only knew that the demonic aura gathered inside. And every once in a while, the demonic aura would riot once or twice. During this period of time, the demonic aura would wantonly spread and become much stronger. Now, the demonic aura riot, which was not seen even once in a few years, had happened several times in a row within this month. This was why Feng Isa and the rest were so worried. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression also turned serious. He was very familiar with the otherworldly demons, but he had never seen such a strange situation. Logically speaking, the demonic aura would either be countered by the world and gradually dissipate, or it would wantonly spread and never stop. However, the demonic aura in the nest of 1,000 devils had always remained the nest of 1,000 devils, and it would only riot once in a while. This nest of 1,000 devils probably has a lot of secrets. Tianyang's expression turned serious. At this moment, Feng Yi's expression turned serious as he said to Tianyang, "Young hero, may I ask if you are willing to join our demon-killing mercenary group? Our demon-killing mercenary group's mission is to exterminate demons. It's just that the demonic aura has been rioting recently, and we lack high-end combat power to exterminate demons. If you join us, our demon-killing mercenary group will definitely become stronger." Feng Yi said sincerely. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, then returned to normal. "There's no need. I'm used to being alone. Moreover, if you follow me, it's even more dangerous than exterminating demons." Tianyang smiled lightly and finished the Qingyuan wine in one gulp. Then he walked out of the pub. Countless people in the pub stared at Tianyang's back until he disappeared. Chapter 451. Walking in the Demon-Suppressing City. Tianyang obtained the map of the nest of 10,000 devils and walked toward it without hesitation. The nest of 10,000 devils hid thousands of devils and was where the Haoyu cultivators were infected with demonic qi. Even if Tianyang did not have a death mission, he had to take a look. Not to mention the limitations of the death mission. Is this the nest of 10,000 devils? Tianyang stood on the city wall and looked at the nest of 10,000 devils that was surging with demonic qi like a sea of demonic qi. Back then, he had encountered such a situation with demonic qi, but he did not expect it to happen again 10,000 years later. The sky cloud sword in his body vibrated slightly. Clearly, the sky cloud sword was also bursting with fighting spirit. If he could absorb all the demonic qi, he might be able to attain a heaven-rank martial soul. "Let's go." Tianyang snorted and immediately used the Void Step secret technique to rush toward the nest of 10,000 devils. "Big brother, can we really succeed by doing this?" Around the nest of 10,000 devils, Suwen looked at the half-revealed treasure and whispered to the young man beside him. Hearing this, the young man beside him sneered. "I don't believe that a person can resist the temptation of this treasure. The person you're talking about dared to look down on our Su family, so he should be prepared to die." Hearing this, Su Wenzhong nodded heavily, and a vicious look flashed in his eyes. He was used to being domineering. When had he ever been treated so rudely by Tianyang? It caused him to lose face in front of everyone. Therefore, he came directly to the nest of 10,000 devils and found his big brother, Su Wu, to deal with Tianyang. Su Wen's talent was average and was only at the first heaven of the Dao Fire Realm, while Su Wu had already reached the third heaven of the Dao Fire Realm. In Su Wen's opinion, it would be easy for the two of them to deal with Tianyang together. Whoosh! At this moment, a black shadow swept past, bringing with it a terrifying demonic qi. Seeing this, Su Wu's expression changed slightly. "The demonic qi is rampaging again. Let's retreat first." Then the two of them hid in the underground cave. Above them was the formation that they had set up to kill Tianyang. There's actually a quasi-spiritual artifact buried in this nest of myriad devils. At this time, Tianyang also flew over from above. Looking at the half of the long spear that was faintly emitting the fluctuations of a quasi-spiritual weapon, he faintly smiled and flew over. Tianyang was not a spear user, nor did he lack pseudo-spirit-grade weapons. In the Heaven Yuan Tower, he had as many of these things as he wanted, let alone being buried in a dangerous place like the nest of 1,000 devils. Tianyang would not touch them even if they were placed on the side of the road. Even if he took it, he wouldn't be able to use it, so what was the point of taking it? However, when Su Wu saw the Tianyang flying directly into the depths of the nest of 1,000 devils, ignoring the treasures he had buried, Su Wu couldn't help but become furious. This was blatant contempt. Contempt for Su Wu, contempt for the entire Su family. "Go! If I can't kill him with a trap, then I'll kill him in the nest of 1,000 devils." There are countless demonic beasts in the nest of 1,000 devils. Even if Tianyang dies at our hands, he'll only think that it was done by demonic beasts. He won't suspect us, Su Wu said coldly. Hearing this, Su Wu nodded and hurriedly followed. At this time, Tianyang came to a valley and stopped. He frowned slightly. His finger touched an invisible barrier in front of him, and his face sank. This demonic aura actually formed a barrier? This is where the demonic aura is the densest. If I'm not wrong, this is the source of the demonic aura. I didn't expect the demonic aura to be so dense. Even I would have a hard time breaking through a barrier of this level. Tianyang muttered to himself. At this time, a bloody light came from his side. A terrifying claw came from behind and viciously slashed at Tianyang. Oof. Tianyang snorted coldly and slashed out with the Styx sword in his hand. A terrifying sword light burst out and directly killed the thing behind him. Ah! The demonic beast let out a shrill scream, but Tianyang did not have the slightest bit of mercy. His expression was cold as he slashed out with his sword again. Poochie! The demonic beast's defense was directly broken through. Blood spurted out, and its innards splattered all over the ground. Tianyang also absorbed the demonic aura and swallowed it into the Sky Cloud sword. The Sky Cloud sword flashed and became a bit stronger. The spirit rhinoceros, a demonic beast of this level, has been demonized into such a state. This nest of 1,000 devils is indeed a dangerous place. Tianyang looked at the completely dead demonic beast and sighed. This demonic beast must have struggled a lot when it was alive. However, the strength of the demonic aura was far from what ordinary demonic beasts could withstand. Therefore, the spirit rhinoceros's soul had been destroyed by the demonic aura, turning it into a monster that only knew how to kill. It must be known that the spirit rhinoceros was a gentle demonic beast that would retreat when it saw mortals. This otherworldly demon is really despicable. Tianyang gritted his teeth and burned the corpse of the demonized spirit rhinoceros. If it was exposed to the air like this, the smell of blood would spread and attract the attention of other demonic beasts. Before he understood the nest of 1,000 devils, Tianyang did not want to kill too many. Boom! At this moment, a demonic light shot out from behind him. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He slashed out with the Styx sword in his hand, and only then did he disintegrate the pillar of demonic aura. However, the remaining demonic aura exploded and still contaminated Tianyang's body. If Tianyang did not have the Sky Cloud sword, he would have been injured by the demonic aura. Not only does it protect, but it also automatically attacks. The things here are definitely not ordinary. Tianyang stared at the demonic fog that shrouded the interior of the barrier. Then, he left without looking back. The demonic aura barrier was extremely sturdy. Therefore, Tianyang did not intend to use all his strength to break the barrier. He wanted to see if there were any weak points first. Just as Tianyang was checking the barrier, the demonic beast in the nest of 1,000 devils suddenly let out a sharp cry. In the next moment, a pillar of light shot into the sky, carrying with it a rolling dragon's aura. Tianyang's true dragon body sensed it and immediately released it. The level of the true dragon's aura was not inferior to this dragon's aura. It also erupted and corresponded with the pillar of light from afar. A true dragon has fallen here before. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Then, he immediately soared into the sky and flew toward the pillar of light. The reason for that was because he saw boundless demonic chi rushing madly in that direction. If he was late, the true dragon treasure that appeared because of Tianyang's true dragon body might be corroded by the demonic aura. Big brother, there seems to be a great treasure over there. In the distance, Su Wu and Su Wan, who had lost track of Tianyang, immediately widened their eyes and looked at the pillar of light that looked like a coiling dragon. Then, they immediately rushed over. Chapter 452. The Dragon Race, especially the true dragon, was undoubtedly one of the most powerful creatures in this world. Many years ago, in the war against the otherworldly demons, the Dragon Clan had also fought against the otherworldly demons. Dying on the battlefield wasn't a big deal. However, what shocked Tianyang was that this true dragon could actually sense his true dragon body. Tianyang's expression slightly changed, and he once again operated his true essence, increasing his speed. Soon, he arrived at the light pillar. Looking down, what released this soaring light pillar wasn't some dragon race inheritance, as Tianyang thought, but rather a true dragon skeleton. The true dragon skeleton was several hundred meters long and several hundred meters wide. It looked extremely tyrannical and terrifying. Even if it had already been dead for who knew how many years, Tianyang could still feel the terrifying aura belonging to the dragon race from it. This aura seemed to be able to kill the demon race even from billions of years away. This true dragon might have been a true dragon above the third level of the Sea of Soul realm when it was alive. Tianyang's expression slightly changed. Looking at this true dragon skeleton, a true dragon above the third level of the Sea of Soul realm could almost be counted as a quasi-dragon king. Above the seventh level of the Sea of Soul realm was a true dragon king. At the Heaven Ascension realm, there was also the title of Dragon Emperor and Dragon Emperor. However, in Tianyang's era, the true dragon race didn't have a Dragon Emperor level existence. The strongest was only a Dragon Emperor, and it even changed its name to Dragon Saint. Of course, its strength was also extremely unfathomable. If this true dragon skeleton is corroded by demonic chi and demonized, then it will inevitably give rise to a terrifying disaster. Tianyang was fully aware of the terrifying characteristics of demonic chi. Even if it was a skeleton without any vitality, as long as there was a bit of power remaining, it could be demonized by demonic chi. And if the skeleton of this quasi-dragon king was demonized, then it would undoubtedly be a calamity of annihilation. Perhaps the entire demon-suppressing city would be destroyed because of this. Fortunately, the demonic chi's spreading speed isn't that fast. Tianyang looked at the surging demon chi dozens of miles away and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, the demon chi was far from eroding this true dragon skeleton. After that, Tianyang landed on the ground. Just as he was about to continue observing the skeleton of the quasi-dragon king, he suddenly discovered that there were two other people beside the skeleton. Tianyang narrowed his eyes and looked at the two people. He recognized one of them. It was that hedonistic young Master Su, one who was bossy and domineering in the demon-suppressing city and was taught a lesson by him. At this moment, Su-Wen was trying his best to dig for something at the edge of the light pillar. However, it was useless. How tough was the skeleton of a quasi-dragon king? How could it be damaged by a puny first layer Dao fire realm? At this moment, Su-Wen also suddenly discovered Tianyang's existence. Looking at Tianyang, who had just landed and was walking towards him, his eyes flashed with fury. It was this person who made him lose face in front of countless people in the demon-suppressing city. Big brother, it's this person. Su-Wen turned his head and said. Hearing this, Su-Wu nodded his head. Although he had dug a trap before, Tianyang didn't fall for it and flashed past it. Therefore, Su-Wu didn't know what Tianyang looked like. Now that he obtained Su-Wen's proof, Su-Wu looked at Tianyang and a trace of a sinister smile appeared on his face. You actually dare to humiliate my Su family's disciples in the demon-suppressing city. How should you be punished? Su-Wu stood out and looked down at Tianyang with a condescending gaze as he sneered. Hearing this, Tianyang's brows raised. Who's this guy? Is there something wrong with his head? However, Tianyang also heard that this guy who looked like a person with cerebral palsy was Su-Wen's relative. This time, he came to take revenge on him. It's just taking care of a piece of trash that can't be shown in public. What's wrong with that? Tianyang smiled faintly and didn't act rashly. Who knew what other changes would happen to this quasi-dragon king skeleton? Although it appeared because of Tianyang's true dragon physique, it was hard to guarantee that the true dragon physique wouldn't be targeted by this skeleton. What if this guy came for revenge? What's wrong with that? Hearing this, Su-Wu's face suddenly darkened and he stared at Tianyang. You humiliated my Su family's people and still say that you're wrong. Kid, you got guts. In the next moment, Su-Wu's true essence of the third heaven of the Dao fire realm suddenly erupted. Rolling pressure swept across the entire place and pressed down on Tianyang fiercely. Immediately after, Su-Wu clenched his right fist and roared. Low-class Earth rank martial technique, fire sky fist. Boom! A flame suddenly ignited. Seeing this, Tianyang's face changed slightly. However, he wasn't surprised at all. Instead, his face was cold. This guy didn't even know his name and started a fight just because of a disagreement. This person really needed to be taught a lesson. Activating the divine desolate heavenly spirit art, the sky origin true essence released a burst of resplendent light. The true essence of the peak of the first level of the Tao fire realm exploded out, directly smashing towards Su Wu. You actually want to use pure, true essence to block my low-grade earth rank martial skill? You are courting death. Upon seeing this, Su Wu harumphed coldly. The flames in his hand were ignited once again as he hurled the attack at Tianyang's face. In Su Wu's imagination, if this punch landed, Tianyang's head would explode like a watermelon. Then, he could tell everyone that the Su family had the final say in the demon-suppressing city. Tianyang chuckled. He didn't even bother to lift his finger. That ball of true essence exploded. Boom! The spiritual fire of annihilation mixed in with the incomparably violent true essence impact instantly shattered the fire sky fist and ruthlessly smashed into Su Wu's body. Su Wu's expression changed greatly. Just as he was about to attack, the spirit annihilation flame suddenly erupted. Ah! Su Wu crazily screamed. However, Tianyang's expression was still as cold as ever. The true essence shockwave once again struck Su Wu's chest. Pooh! Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Su Wu's body flew out like a cannonball. He smashed through countless giant trees and could not stop. Meanwhile, the bones in Su Wu's body were almost shattered into pieces by the attack, causing his aura to weaken tremendously. Su Wen's face was filled with shock. He looked at Tianyang in disbelief. Was this still the person he wanted to kill? Was this level of strength really something that could appear in the demon-suppressing city? He didn't even move a finger, but he had almost killed his prodigy brother. In fact, if Tianyang was not concerned about the Quasi-Dragon King skeleton and was too lazy to make a move, Su Wu would probably be a dead man now. Even if that wasn't the case, all the bones in his body had been shattered, and he had been reduced to a cripple. You also want me to make a move? Tianyang glanced at Su Wen indifferently. Hearing this, Su Wen was scared witless and hurriedly ran away. Chapter 453. The true dragon skeleton was enormous. If he wanted to investigate inch by inch, he might not be able to complete it even after countless years. Therefore, Tianyang directly arrived at the dragon's head. What was miraculous was that this dragon skeleton had been buried underground for who knew how many years. Now that it had resurfaced, not only did it not have the slightest bit of corrosion, this dragon's head even had a trace of pressure. It belonged to the third level of Sea of Soul Realm and above, Quasi-Dragon King level pressure. Tianyang, who had activated 108 true dragon marks, naturally did not fear this true dragon's pressure. However, he also felt a bit more respect for this Quasi-Dragon King that had died with a majestic aura. This is the origin of the light pillar. But how do I do it? Tianyang arrived at the side of the dragon's head. Looking at the forehead that was endlessly emitting countless rays of light, he scratched his head, his face at a loss. Although he had fought side by side with the dragon race, he did not know what to do if the dragon's body emitted light after death. However, Tianyang was not a loss. The true dragon pellet in his body revolved rapidly. 108 true dragon marks lit up one after another, and an extremely pure dragon power poured into the forehead. Bang! The rays of light suddenly rose sharply. Even though he was inside the light pillar, Tianyang could clearly feel that this light pillar had once again increased sharply by countless times. However, apart from this, it seemed that nothing else had happened. Tianyang's brows knitted. The appearance of this Quasi-Dragon King skeleton at this time, and even caused such a heaven and earth phenomenon, it would be a lie to say that there was nothing strange about it. However, even though he had poured in the purest true dragon power, there was not the slightest bit of effect. This made Tianyang directly confused. At this time, at the edge of another part of nest of myriad devils, Su Wen was scared witless as he ran here. He didn't even care about his elder brother. As he looked at the light pillar that was still soaring into the sky, a look of extreme resentment flashed across his eyes. You actually dare to treat me, Suwon, like this? Even if Big Brother can't deal with you, how could the others in Nest of Myriad Devils not be able to deal with you? True dragon skeleton. That's a treasure among treasures. Suwon laughed sinisterly. In the next moment, a special artifact in his hand suddenly emitted a bright light. A voice that had been amplified to the extreme instantly resounded throughout the entire Nest of Myriad Devils. In the eastern part of the Nest of Myriad Devils, where the Pillar of Light is located, the skeleton of a true dragon has appeared. Now, only one person has obtained the true dragon skeleton. The true dragon skeleton seems to contain the inheritance of the dragon clan. Suwon repeated this 3 times. Then, he detonated the treasure artifact, causing the sound to reverberate continuously. In the distance in a forest, hearing the loud noise in the sky, the man's face changed slightly, and he looked at the huge light pillar that soared into the sky. True dragon skeleton? The inheritance of the dragon clan? How can we let one person monopolize this kind of thing? I, Zhang Outyin, will have a piece of the true dragon skeleton. On the other side, the expression of an old man with white hair and a white beard that fluttered in the wind instantly changed when he heard this voice. This is Winter's voice? Could it be that he has encountered some kind of treasure? True dragon skeleton, the inheritance of the dragon clan. No one in the demon-suppressing city can snatch this from my Su family. A look of greed flashed across the old man's eyes. In the next moment, he immediately soared into the sky and flew wildly toward the light pillar. In an instant, countless people around the Nest of Myriad Devils heard this loud shout. Without distinguishing whether it was true or false, they immediately put down the things in their hands and flew toward the light pillar. Regardless of whether it was the true dragon skeleton or the inheritance of the dragon clan, they were both treasures that ordinary cultivators would go crazy for. How could such a treasure be pocketed by a single person? Therefore, countless cultivators, ranging from peak Quasi-Dao Fire Realm cultivators to peak Third Heaven Dao Fire Realm cultivators, rushed to the east of the Nest of Myriad Devils, where the light pillar was located. As for Suwon, he looked at the figures that flashed past above his head, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. How dare you provoke me, Suwon? I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. In the next moment, Suwon also released his true origin and flew toward the true dragon skeleton. He wanted to personally witness the scene of Tianyang being besieged to death by countless powerhouses. One last method. At this moment, Tianyang, who was isolated from all external interference by the light pillar, still did not know that his news had been exposed. However, even if he knew, he would not care. At this moment, he was completely focused on activating the true dragon skeleton. Previously, Tianyang had experimented with countless methods, including injecting dragon power, dragon chi, carving a soul imprint, and even injecting true origin. He had tried everything. However, other than making the light pillar shine for a moment when dragon chi and dragon power were injected, the dragon head was useless. Now, there was only one last method left. Tianyang stretched out his index finger and bit the tip of his finger. A drop of blood essence flowed out. Then, with a serious expression, Tianyang dripped this drop of blood essence between the dragon head's eyebrows. Immediately, rays of 5-colored dragon power light scattered in all directions. The light pillar was instantly enlarged to the extreme. A monstrous soul power surged and directly enveloped Tianyang. Tianyang's expression changed slightly, but he did not resist. He allowed this soul power to bring his soul to a strange space. In this quasi-dragon king's soul sea, it was withered and desolate. His soul power was almost dried up to the extreme. Even the source of the dragon clan's strength, dragon power, was not left at all. Even if he preserved himself extremely well, this strength was inevitably lost. After 9,000 years, I have finally waited for a person who possesses the strength of my dragon clan. At this moment, A long sigh came from in front of Tianyang. Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he looked at this person. A tall, well-proportioned, and handsome man with dragon horns on his head slowly turned to face the heavenly sun. Many thanks to you for using your essence blood to help me. Otherwise, I'm afraid my soul would have already scattered and I would have died. That person smiled faintly. Then Tianyang guessed who this person was and smiled lightly. Sir, could it be that you are the skeleton of that quasi-dragon king? Hearing Tianyang's indifferent tone, that person raised his eyebrows slightly and then smiled. That's right. I am that quasi-dragon king. The quasi-dragon king that died 9,000 years ago. My name is Long Tian. I am the most talented dragon king in the dragon clan, the one with the most hope to ascend to the position of dragon emperor. Unfortunately, 9,000 years ago, I died in a battle with the outer realm evil demons. I left behind a remnant soul that has bitterly waited for 9,000 years. Long Tian smiled. His tone also revealed a sense of loneliness. 9,000 years of waiting was not something an ordinary person could endure. Then, do you have something for me to do? Tianyang said seriously. To be able to make a quasi-dragon king wait for 9,000 years, it was definitely not an ordinary matter. In addition to the legend of the nest of 10,000 demons, Tianyang suddenly had a bad premonition. Hearing this, Long Tian smiled. Kid. Chapter 454. Secret. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and his expression turned slightly solemn. Long Tian was the Dragon King from 9,000 years ago. They were in the same period. Moreover, it seemed that after the Great Destruction, the extraterrestrial demons didn't disappear immediately. Instead, they struggled for 1,000 years. Long Tian died in this struggle. The secret he spoke of was undoubtedly the most credible. That's right. Long Tian smiled and looked at Tianyang. This secret is what you want to know. It's about the secret of the nest of 1,000 devils. Then, Long Tian explained to Tianyang in detail. Tianyang frowned. The nest of 1,000 devils was born not long after the Great Destruction. It was a place created by the remaining extraterrestrial demons in Heaven Continent. Before the Great Destruction, this was a very ordinary deep cave. It might have been left behind by a battle between two experts. Naturally, it wasn't famous. Tianyang naturally didn't know about it. After the extraterrestrial demons created the nest of 1,000 devils, all the major clans of Heaven Continent knew about it. Even though their vitality was greatly damaged because of the Great Destruction, they immediately sent out many experts to attack. After all, the Great Destruction was only a temporary crisis. If the extraterrestrial demons succeeded in their scheme, it would be a crisis that would lead to the complete destruction of Heaven Continent. Long Tian, as one of the few quasi-dragon kings in the Dragon Clan, was naturally sent out. However, the nest of 1,000 devils was at its peak at that time. There were countless extraterrestrial demons hidden inside. We used all our strength to kill most of them. However, after the extraterrestrial demons died, they were extremely difficult to deal with. The demon chi they left behind even gave birth to intelligence due to the large amount of demon chi. Long Tian's face was filled with anger as he spoke. Although Tianyang hadn't experienced that battle, he knew how thrilling it was. It wasn't a battle between clans, nor was it a battle between countries. It was a battle to the death between clans, between worlds. Tianyang had experienced many battles of this level. As for him, although he was the strongest person on the continent, he had also been besieged by otherworldly demons several times. The demon Chi's spirit has inherited its consciousness from when it was alive. It is also hostile to the people of Sky Cloud's continent. Naturally, we couldn't let go of this demonic Chi. Just as we were about to purify it, we didn't expect the strength of the spirit of demonic Chi to greatly exceed our expectations. There was some fear on Long Tian's face. Even his voice had started to tremble slightly. It was obvious that the spirit of demonic Chi had possessed terrifying strength at that time. Upon seeing this, Tianyang's expression darkened. This demonic Chi spirit was actually so powerful. Looking at the current situation of a nest of myriad devils, the spirit of demonic chi definitely hadn't been completely eliminated in the battle back then. Otherwise, the nest of 10,000 devils would not be filled with demonic chi until now. We used all our strength to severely injure it, but we were unable to completely kill it. In the end, a Heaven Ascension Realm Master took action and sealed it in the depths of the nest of 10,000 devils. However, the spirit of demonic chi wasn't an ordinary otherworldly demon. Before it was sealed, it unleashed a terrifying counterattack. It directly, severely injured the Heaven Ascension Realm Master and killed us. Long Tian roared angrily. Surging dragons might erupted. His face was filled with anger and fear. Tianyang could see it with a single glance. The spirit of demonic chi's counterattack was actually able to severely injure a Heaven Ascension Realm Master and even kill a quasi-dragon king like Long Tian. Just how strong was the spirit of demonic chi? However, because the spirit of demonic chi had exhausted all of its demonic chi in its counterattack, the effects of a seal were greatly displayed. It has forever suppressed the spirit of demonic chi in the nest of 10,000 devils. Long Tian chuckled. At this moment, Tianyang also noticed that Long Tian's figure was gradually fading. His expression abruptly changed. He knew that this was a sign that the remaining spiritual energy in the remnant soul was about to be exhausted. His entire soul was about to scatter. However, the current nest of 10,000 devils is still wreaking havoc with demonic chi. In fact, within this month, there have been several demonic chi riots, causing the surrounding people to suffer. Tianyang said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Long Tian's expression instantly changed. He said in shock, "Demonic chi raging? Demonic chi riots?" Could it be that Lord Ice Emperor Seal back then was unable to suppress the spirit of demonic chi? Ice Emperor. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed. Ice Emperor? He knew the Ice Emperor very well. After all, his disciple had cultivated the Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique. If Tianyang wasn't familiar with the Ice Emperor, he wouldn't have been so assured to let Ling Yuhan cultivate it. Although Tianyang hadn't interacted much with the Ice Emperor, he knew a little about the Ice Emperor's character. He wasn't exactly upright and plain-spoken, but he was also very clear about his debts of gratitude and grudges. He hated the extraterrestrial demons even more. If it had been the Ice Emperor, there wouldn't have been any logical problems. However, as Tianyang pondered this, his expression immediately darkened. The spirit of demonic chi's counterattack had actually managed to severely injure a powerhouse of the Ice Emperor's level. That's right, it was Lord Ice Emperor. At that time, Lord Ice Emperor was still able to display the power of the reaching heaven state. Moreover, he was the only reaching heaven state powerhouse who was proficient in sealing. At that time, Lord Ice Emperor forcibly used his battered body to resist the heavenly tribulation and forcibly used the 99 layers Great Seal formation. His vitality was greatly damaged, which was why he was severely injured by the spirit of demonic chi. Long Tianyang said. Hearing this, Tianyang's heavy expression eased slightly. If that was the case, it wasn't impossible to explain. As the first person to experience the power of the great destruction of civilization, Tianyang was the clearest about it. His true yuan at the peak of the reaching heaven state couldn't withstand a single blow from the great destruction of civilization. Even the heavenly sword had been shattered by this great tribulation. Even he himself had died in this most powerful heavenly tribulation in history. It was just that by chance he had been reborn 10,000 years later. At that time, those who had survived must have been severely injured. Tianyang had also heard the 99 layers Great Seal formation. It was the Ice Emperor's most powerful sealing technique. Under the circumstances at that time, using the 99 layers Great Seal formation would definitely have greatly damaged the Ice Emperor's vitality. It wasn't impossible that the spirit of demonic chi had taken the opportunity to launch a sneak attack and severely injure him. However, the strength of the spirit of demonic chi was definitely not weak. The demonic chi is wreaking havoc. In other words, Lord Ice Emperor's 99 layers Great Seal formation is already gone. Otherwise, no matter what, such a situation wouldn't have occurred. And the demonic qi is becoming more and more violent, Long Tianyang muttered. His originally grave expression was so grave that it couldn't be any more grave. Tianyang's heart also moved slightly as he thought of a terrifying possibility. Then, the two spoke at the same time. Chapter 455. The spirit of the demonic qi is about to awaken, Tianyang and Long Tian said in unison. In the next moment, their faces turned ugly. Before the spirit of the demonic qi had awakened, it had caused the demonic qi to wreak havoc in the nest of 1,000 demons. All sorts of monsters had been bred, and the original demonic beasts had become extremely ferocious monsters. Because of the nest of 1,000 demons, countless people had died in the demon-suppressing city. It was only when the mercenary group entered that the situation was slightly better. Now, the demonic qi was rioting frequently, and the monsters were getting stronger. Even the leader of the demon-killing mercenary group, Feng Isa, did not dare to step into the nest of 1,000 demons. It was obvious how much the spirit of the demonic qi had recovered. If the spirit of the demonic qi was allowed to continue, who could be sure that the spirit of the demonic qi would not become what it was 9,000 years ago? At that time, it would not only be the demon-suppressing city that would be destroyed, but the entire domain of Lingwu would be in trouble. The Firmament Territory, Night Vault City, and Sky Blue College, which were just beside the domain of Lingwu, would not be spared either. Originally, I wanted to observe you and see if you could take on such a great responsibility. At this moment, Long Tian suddenly turned his head and looked at Tianyang. His body was getting dimmer and dimmer. Hearing this, Tianyang's heart trembled. He seemed to understand what Long Tian wanted to do. I'm already at death's door. If this continues, I'm afraid my entire body will be assimilated by the demonic qi, and it will endanger Heaven Continent. I will not allow this to happen, Long Tian said. Then, a bright smile appeared on his face. I can feel the dragon power in your body. It's not weak at all. I don't need to help you improve, and I can't help you improve. The only thing I can do is to use my remaining soul power to send you on your way. There's also the bloodline in my bones. I can get it to you. Long Tian laughed loudly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed. No, there's still hope for your remnant soul to be resurrected. There's no need. Long Tian shook his head and smiled. This remnant soul of mine has already been at death's door for 9,000 years. So what if I can live for a few more years? If I only wanted immortality, I wouldn't have appeared in front of you. Tianyang fell silent when he heard that. He was well aware. If he entered a state of deep sleep, let alone 9,000 years, Long Tian would be able to survive even to 9,000 years. However, was this really the way Long Tian wanted to live? I don't mind giving you this useless dragon soul and skeleton. However, I want you to do something for me. Speak your mind, Tianyang said without hesitation. Hearing this, Long Tian smiled in satisfaction. His body became dimmer and dimmer, revealing a translucent figure. This matter is, give it your all. Even if it costs your life, you must stop the spirit of demonic qi. Long Tian said loudly. Tianyang nodded heavily. A strand of soul strength shot out, turning into a strange rune in the air. I, Tianyang, swear by the great Tao that I will do my best to kill the spirit of demonic qi. If I violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me. Tianyang shouted. Just as he finished speaking, the strange rune immediately entered Tianyang's soul sea. This was a great Tao oath. If one violated a great Tao oath, one's Tao heart would be broken, and inner demons would form. At that time, one's cultivation would not improve, and in the worst case, one would die from the backlash. However, Tianyang did not hesitate. Seeing this, Long Tian smiled in relief. He knew that his request was too much for Tianyang, who had reached such heights at the age of 16. The dragon soul strength and the dragon bone strength combined might be valuable, but compared to the lifetime of a genius like Tianyang, it was still a far cry. If it were anyone else, they would definitely not agree. However, Tianyang agreed. This was what made Long Tian feel the most gratified. He knew that this human youth with dragon force was the genius that he had been waiting for 9,000 years to be able to fight against the spirit of demonic qi and even the extraterrestrial demons. Then, I, Long Tian, will bestow upon you a great fortune. Long Tian burst into laughter. In the next moment, his entire body was engulfed in flames. On the huge true dragon skeleton in the outside world, a ball of raging fire suddenly ignited, turning into a boundless amount of dragon power. Tianyang stood where he was and quietly accepted Long Tian's gift. He looked at Tianyang with admiration and performed an etiquette from 10,000 years ago. It was the highest etiquette for a hero. Seeing this, Long Tian instinctively returned the etiquette. Then, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. How do you know this etiquette? You are definitely not from this era. Who are you? Long Tian was shocked. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled gently. Although his voice was not loud, his tone became solemn. Tianji, Sword Emperor Tianyang, a fierce aura that belonged exclusively to the Tianji, Sword Emperor, instantly exploded. Hearing this, Long Tian's pupils shrank to the extreme. In the next moment, he burst into laughter. Ha ha ha! I didn't expect that after waiting for 9,000 years, the Sword Emperor would actually come. Long Tian did not doubt the authenticity of Tianyang's words. Tianyang's etiquette and that unique aura represented Tianyang's identity. I, Long Tian, will die with no regrets if I can send the Sword Emperor off on his journey before I die. In the next moment, the golden dragon flame instantly engulfed Long Tian's entire body. An extremely pure soul force was also injected into Tianyang's body. Tianyang did not immediately absorb it. Instead, he looked at the raging flames with deep admiration in his eyes. Have a safe journey. Countless people had already arrived at the side of the pillar of light that erupted from Long Tian's skeleton. Among them, there was no lack of second firmament and third firmament Dao fire realm powerhouses. However, these people all had angry looks on their faces at this moment. This was because in the pillar of light, they could clearly see that the true dragon skeleton was burning with dragon flame. Countless dragon force had been refined and integrated into the body of a young man. Who is this person? Someone said angrily. That voice transmission was not fake, but this true dragon skeleton had been taken by someone else first. They had come here with untold hardships, only to discover that the peach had been taken by someone else. How could they not be angry? However, everyone was afraid to act rashly and did not dare to act rashly. This person's cultivation could not be seen at all. If they offended a mighty figure, they would not be able to bear the consequences. At this moment, a strong wind blew over. An old man with white hair and a white beard slowly descended and came to the side of the pillar of light. When he saw that figure, his expression changed immediately. It's the Su family's patriarch. The Su family's patriarch is here. This person will definitely give up the opportunity. Otherwise, just wait for death. The Su family's patriarch is the strongest person in the demon-suppressing city. His strength is close to the half-step spirit sea realm. If this person is stubborn, then he will die without a doubt. Everyone exclaimed one after another. At this moment, the Su family's patriarch nodded slightly and looked coldly at Tianyang, saying, I am the Su family's patriarch, Su Tiancheng. If you don't want me to make a move, then it's better to get out of the way. The Su family's patriarch looked down at Tianyang indifferently with a face full of arrogance and disdain. However, when Tianyang heard this, he did not say a word. His body did not move at all. It was obvious that he did not care about the Su family's patriarch. Seeing this, the Su family's patriarch's face darkened. Damn it! How dare you steal my fortuitous encounter? Die! The Su family's patriarch roared angrily as endless killing intent surged. In the next moment, The true essence of the peak of the third firmament of the Tao fire realm suddenly erupted. Middle-grade earth rank martial skill, heavenly flame fist. A majestic fist mark that was burning with flames suddenly exploded and charged directly towards Tianyang. If this punch landed, Tianyang's state would be interrupted at the very least. He might even be seriously injured and die. The Su family's patriarch's punch was to kill Tianyang. At this moment, the last strand of dragon energy was injected into Tianyang's body. Tianyang's eyes suddenly opened. A terrifying sharp light burst out. In the next moment, Tianyang noticed the blazing fist mark beside him. His eyes turned cold. In front of a great enemy, there's still internal strife. If this person is left alive, it's useless. Why don't we just kill him? Heaven rank martial skill, Dragon King's divine fist. Tianyang snorted coldly. The dragon energy in his hand gathered into a huge dragon and fiercely smashed towards the heavenly flame fist mark. Boom! The fist mark exploded, but Tianyang's punch did not slow down in the slightest. Instead, it accelerated and smashed towards the Su family's patriarch. The Su family's patriarch turned pale with fright, just as he was about to channel his true essence to block it. How could he react to the Dragon King's divine fist? Bang! Countless dragon energy dragons roared. In the next moment, the Su family's patriarch was smashed in a meat paste by this punch. Chapter 456. The ancestor of the Su family, Su Tiancheng, was dead. Everyone's pupils constricted as they looked in horror at the Su family's ancestor, who had turned into a pile of meat paste, and not even his soul remained. The number one expert of the demon-suppressing city had died, just like that, died at the hands of a youth who looked to be at most in his teens. Not only was his strongest earth rank martial skill broken, he didn't even have the chance to use his martial spirit before he was killed by this youth's punch. Who exactly is this person? One of them trembled as he retreated a few steps, looking at Tianyang with incomparable shock. They were considered important figures in the demon-suppressing city. However, not only had they never seen Tianyang before, they had never even heard of Tianyang's name. Even the Su family's ancestor, Su Tiancheng, was killed by this person with a single punch. Then, wouldn't we? One of them trembled even more, his legs trembling like sifting chaff, and the people beside him also had faces full of fear. He had killed the Su family's great ancestor so easily, and without using any strength at all. They were a group of important figures in the demon-suppressing city. Even if they had the strength to dominate the city, they could only tremble in front of Tianyang. The lowest among them was at the peak of the second level of the Tao fire realm. The highest was even about the same as the Su family's ancestor, Su Tiancheng, at the peak of the third level of the Tao fire realm. However, they all bowed their heads in front of Tianyang, who was at the first level of the Tao fire realm. The demonic chi is wreaking havoc, and the demonic tide is rioting, but you don't know how to resist. All you think about is internal strife. No wonder so many places fell in that war 10,000 years ago. Tianyang coldly glanced at these people. If you know what's good for you, scram. Hearing this, the group of big shots nodded their heads while trembling and hurriedly ran away. They didn't dare to stay here for even a second, afraid that they would become the next Su Tiancheng. Even someone as powerful as the Su family's ancestor was easily killed by this youth, let alone him. At this moment, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and the corner of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. Since you're here, why don't you come out? Hearing this, Su Wan, who was hiding in the bushes, seemed to have been immobilized. He was unable to move, and his face was filled with terror. He knew that the reason so many experts had come here was because of him. Now that he had been discovered by Tianyang, only death awaited him. Run! Su Wan roared in his heart. Soon after, the primeval essence of the first level of the Tao fire realm exploded out. In a short 3 seconds, he had accelerated to his maximum speed and was about to rush out a few miles. At this time, Tianyang waved his hand, and the power of space gushed out. Su Wan's body froze on the spot. In the next moment, Tianyang chuckled. explode. Su Wen's body immediately became distorted as the power of space squeezed him. Before he could beg for mercy, he was directly crushed by the power of space. It turned into a huge cloud of blood mist in midair. Now that I have nothing to worry about, I can head straight into the depths of the nest of 1,000 devils. After killing the Su family's patriarch and Su Wen, Tianyang's expression returned to its original state. Su Wen and the Su family were tyrannical and unreasonable people. Looking at Su Wen's situation, it was unknown how many people he had killed. The Su family was able to become the #1 force in demon-suppressing city because of the cruel methods of the Su family's patriarch. Back then, countless people had died at the hands of the Su family patriarch. As a result, the number of experts in demon-suppressing city had greatly decreased, causing some villages that relied on demon-suppressing city to be invaded by demonic energy and completely destroyed. Therefore, these people deserve to die. The spirit of demonic energy can even severely injure the Ice Emperor and break through the 99 layers of the Ice Sky Seal. This is not easy to deal with. Tianyang frowned slightly. A black light flashed in his hand, and the stick's sword appeared. However, I'll deal with it as it comes. I'll just kill my way over. Long Tian's self-sacrifice had not only strengthened Tianyang's true dragon body, even his soul strength at the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm had increased to a certain extent. Compared to his previous life, it was much stronger. In other words, Tianyang's trump card had become even stronger. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Tianyang rose into the air and used a secret technique to fly toward the center of the nest of 1,000 devils. Demonic energy surged in the center of the nest of 1,000 devils. With almost every breath, demonic energy would invade one's body. Therefore, the center of the nest of 1,000 devils was recognized by countless experts as a forbidden area. Even demonic beasts did not dare to stay here for too long. After all, demonic energy was highly toxic to the native creatures of Heaven Continent. Demonic beasts would also have their lifespans greatly reduced due to the demonic energy. Otherwise, Tianyang would not be in such a hurry. This barrier is probably built by the spirit of demonic energy to protect itself. Tianyang arrived outside the demonic energy barrier. Looking at the purplish-black scene inside, he snorted coldly and slashed out with his sword. Sky Extreme Sword Art. First sword, Soaring Heavens. An extremely sharp sword light burst out from the stick's sword. In the next moment, it directly slashed the demonic energy barrier. Boom! A deafening explosion erupted. The demonic energy barrier trembled for a moment, but it quickly returned to its original state. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. He slashed out again. Boom! This time, it contained an endless amount of true dragon strength. Its power was much stronger than before. Therefore, the demonic energy barrier trembled even more. Tianyang's face darkened slightly. His two swords were still unable to break through. It seemed that the spirit of demonic energy was indeed not weak. Another sword, the Divine Wilderness Heavenly Spirit Art, circulated rapidly. His sky origin true essence erupted with rays of light. At this moment, the sky origin true essence condensed by the 9-colored Xinguang suddenly trembled. Even Tianyang himself did not notice that his stick sword was covered in a faint 9-colored layer. Sky Extreme Sword Art. Third sword, Star Burial. Tianyang roared angrily. His true essence, dragon strength, and soul strength were all stimulated to the extreme. A sword light that was as resplendent as the 9 heavens galaxy burst out. Before the sword light landed, the demonic energy barrier trembled and erupted with endless light. Clearly, the demonic energy barrier had sensed a great danger. In the next moment, the endless light condensed into a huge pillar of demonic energy that shot towards Tianyang. Break for me! Tianyang roared angrily. Star Burial's sword light shone brightly and collided with a pillar of demonic energy. Boom! Space was torn apart, demonic energy wreaked havoc, and true essence surged. Star Burial's sword and the pillar of demonic energy collided. The entire nest of 10,000 devils seemed to tremble because of this collision. However, the pillar of demonic energy was still firm. There's nothing that one sword can't solve. If there is, then two swords. Styx sword art, third style, river of forgetfulness. Break. Boom. The pillar of demonic energy exploded. The demonic energy barrier, which had exhausted all of its demonic energy, naturally could not withstand the bombardment of the two sword lights and exploded. At this moment, a shrill scream came from the depths of the nest of 10,000 devils. Chapter 457. Demonic chi swept across the area, and the majestic pressure seemed to suppress the entire nest of 10,000 demons. In the demon-suppressing city, countless people walked out of their houses and looked in the direction of the nest of 10,000 demons in shock. Feng Isa and the others' faces changed. This is a demonic chi riot. No, it's much stronger than a demonic chi riot. What is happening? Feng Isa said in shock. The other members of the demon-killing mercenary group were also shocked. Could it be that the nest of 10,000 demons has completely gone berserk? If that's the case, the demon-suppressing city will be destroyed, a middle-aged man said. Hearing this, Feng Isa's heart was filled with determination. Whether or not it's a demonic chi riot, the demon-killing mercenary group must go and take a look. Otherwise, if the citizens of the demon-suppressing city suffer a calamity, we won't be able to rest in peace. Feng Isa said firmly. Hearing this, the members of the demon-killing mercenary group nodded and rushed towards the nest of 10,000 demons. Who is it? You've ruined my plans. An extremely sharp roar came from the depths of the nest of 10,000 demons, accompanied by a terrifying demonic chi. Feeling this demonic chi, Tianyang's face changed instantly. The density of this demonic chi was much denser than the demonic chi he had encountered in the nest of 10,000 demons. If it was said that the devil chi from before could at most kill a 9th-level body refinement realm cultivator in an instant, then the devil chi that was being emitted now could even cause an essence transformation realm cultivator to suffer greatly if they were not careful. I guessed right. This demonic chi spirit is really on the verge of awakening. Tianyang's expression was serious. At this moment, a huge demonic chi hand suddenly rushed out from the depths of the nest of 10,000 demons and attacked Tianyang. You've ruined my plans, Dai. An angry roar that could not be identified as male or female sounded. In the next moment, the demonic chi hand rushed towards Tianyang. If this hand caught Tianyang, even if Tianyang had the true dragon body, he would be severely injured. Tianyang snorted coldly. The Styx sword in his hand suddenly flashed with a terrifying sword light, directly destroying the demonic chi hand. Sneaky scoundrel. Seeing this, the demonic chi spirit in the depths of a nest of 1,000 devils was clearly enraged. Monstrous demonic chi circulated, condensing into countless demonic chi giant hands that attacked Tianyang. Upon seeing this, Tianyang snorted coldly. The Styx sword in his hand shone with boundless radiance as it charged towards the demonic hands. Boom, 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 boom. Under the sword light of the Styx sword, the demonic chi hands, which only had offensive power but lacked defensive power, immediately collapsed. The demonic chi spirit was completely enraged. Human ants, how dare you ruin my plans and provoke me? The demonic chi spirit shrieked and charged out of the nest of myriad demons, arriving in front of Tianyang. All kinds of demonic chi gathered to form a human-like body. The contours of the face were also gradually outlined. The demonic chi spirit was slender and somewhat muscular. It had the appearance of a man, but the contours of its face were extremely soft. It looked neither male nor female. The purplish-black demonic chi also condensed into a purplish-black robe. If not for the monstrous demonic chi surrounding the demonic chi spirit, it would be impossible to tell whether it was a demonic chi or a human. Seeing the demonic chi spirit appear, Tianyang's expression turned slightly serious. The stick's sword in his hand emitted a dangerous sword light. Who are you? Why did you ruin my grand plan of recovery? The demonic Qi spirit looked at Tianyang with boundless fury hidden in its eyes. If not for Tianyang's sudden appearance and destruction of its demonic Qi barrier, it would have completely recovered in a few days. In the end, Tianyang came out of nowhere and destroyed its demonic Qi barrier, directly interrupting its recovery plan. How could the demonic Qi spirit not be enraged? This nest of 1,000 devils was created because of you. As a human, how can I allow you to grow in peace? In this world, there won't be a second Ice Emperor. Tianyang chuckled. Looking at the demonic Qi spirit in front of him, he could feel that the demonic Qi spirit's aura was infinitely close to the spiritual sea realm. It was much stronger than any opponent Tianyang had fought before. In this battle, even Tianyang would have to give it his all. Ice Emperor? Hearing this, the demonic Qi spirit's expression changed. It stared at Tianyang. You human brat, you even know this. Looks like I can't let you live. The demonic Qi spirit snorted coldly. Activating its demonic Qi, it charged forward. 1,000 transformations, demonic palm. The demonic Qi condensed madly. In the next moment, it condensed into an incomparably huge demonic Qi palm and charged toward Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. Wielding the stick sword, he slashed out and collided with the demonic Qi spirit's 1,000 transformations demonic palm. Thunder God's sword, Thunder God's descent. Endless lightning surged and bombarded the demonic Qi giant palm. However, it was easily annihilated. In the end, the 1,000 transformations demonic palm directly hit Tianyang's body. Even with the powerful physique of the true dragon body, it was difficult to block the power of this move. Tianyang was directly sent flying by this palm. Tianyang groaned. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His face was slightly pale. Seeing this, the demonic Qi spirit sneered. With your strength, you dare to provoke me, the demonic Qi spirit. Back then, the Ice Emperor only sealed me and didn't kill me. You, a mere peak of the first level of the Tao Fire Realm, dare to say that you can kill this devil. To reach this stage in your teens, you are indeed a genius. However, this genius will still die in my hands in the end. The demonic Qi spirit laughed loudly. In the next moment, its body suddenly flashed and appeared in front of Tianyang. It directly punched out. Sky Demon Fist. The space was torn apart, and the mountains and rivers trembled. Boom! The stick's river sword was placed horizontally in front of him and directly blocked the punch. However, the invading demonic Qi also caused Tianyang's body to tremble, and he suffered some injuries. His face was even paler. Seeing this, the demonic Qi spirit became even more arrogant. Ha! In the end, this world will be the same as the countless worlds before it. It will fall into the hands of the demonic tribe. Those who dare to stop me will all die. The demonic Qi spirit laughed loudly. With a ferocious smile on his handsome face, he attacked Tianyang again. So what if you broke my demonic Qi barrier? So what if you interrupted my recovery? Now that I have not fully recovered my strength, I can still kill you. Die for me, Sky Demon Fist. The demonic Qi spirit laughed wildly. Demonic Qi gathered on his fist, and he punched out again. Boom! The Sky Demon Fist and the Styx River Sword collided again, and there were bursts of energy ripples. However, this time, Tianyang's body did not show any signs of retreating. Tianyang held the Styx River Sword and looked at the Sky Demon Fist in front of him. He raised his head, and the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. Your IQ is really low. In just 3 moves, I found out everything about you. At this moment, the aura of the level 1 Tao Fire Realm on Tianyang's body suddenly began to surge. The surrounding demonic Qi, the aura of the mountains and rivers, and the power of countless living beings all gathered into Tianyang's body. Martial Soul Talent, Devouring Heaven. Chapter 458. Now it's my turn. Tianyong laughed loudly. In the next moment, his true essence, which had risen to the peak of the third heaven of the Tao fire realm, instantly burst out. The sky firmament sword devoured the demonic chi, which was more useful than devouring the power of the martial soul. Therefore, the sky-devouring secret skill, which could only help Tianyong reach the third heaven of the Tao fire realm at most, was directly raised to the peak of the third heaven of the Tao fire realm. The gap between them was extremely huge. Now, after suffering 3 moves from the spirit of demonic chi, Tianyong, who had figured out the spirit of demonic chi's background, immediately launched a counterattack. Sky Sword Art, second sword shatter the sky. Tianyong roared, and his true essence, which was at the peak of the third heaven of the Tao fire realm, circulated rapidly. The annihilation spiritual fire burned fiercely and directly attacked the spirit of demonic chi. What? Seeing this, the spirit of demonic chi's expression changed greatly. The demonic chi in his body surged wildly, but it was useless. The annihilation spiritual fire, together with the sword that contained infinite annihilation sword intent, directly shattered his demonic chi and bombarded his chest. Puff! The spirit of demonic chi suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was filled with a trace of ferocity and shock. Tianyong's sudden outburst had directly knocked him out. Then, the spirit of demonic chi's eyes suddenly became fierce. Tianyong had mastered such a terrifying secret skill. If he grew up, he would definitely be a great enemy of the extraterrestrial demons. Now, it was just the right time to kill him before he grew up. 1,000 transformations, demonic palm. The spirit of demonic chi roared, and all kinds of demonic chi gathered, once again condensing into an incomparably huge demonic chi palm, and attacked Tianyong. Seeing this, Tianyong smiled faintly. He had already figured out the spirit of demonic chi's background long ago. On the surface, the spirit of demonic chi's cultivation was only at the peak of the half-step sea of Soul Realm. This was also the reason why Tianyong suffered a loss in the first confrontation. He had underestimated the opponent's strength. However, after 2 punches, Tianyong completely understood the spirit of demonic chi's combat strength. First level of Sea of Soul's realm. For the cultivators of the demon-suppressing city in the realm of spiritual martial, this level of combat strength was definitely a terrifying almighty figure. However, it was nothing for the Tianyong. The current Tianyong had unleashed his martial soul's innate talent, devour the heavens, and his cultivation had reached the peak of the 3rd level of the Tao fire realm. Facing a first-level Sea of Soul realm demonic chi spirit, he had the strength to fight. Break! Tianyong coldly shouted as the divine desolate heavenly spirit art circulated at an extremely fast speed. The stick's sword in his hand shone with an extremely deep light as the nether death chi and nether force erupted at the same time. Stick swordsmanship. First move, second move, third move. 3 moves in 1. Tianyong roared. In the next moment, an extremely profound sword light of death shot out and slashed toward the demonic palm of all transformations. Mere human ants die. The spirit of demonic chi shrieked. In the next moment, the demonic chi giant palm and the sword of death collided violently. Boom! A shockwave visible to the naked eye spread out and directly shattered a mountain near the nest of 10,000 devils. Even another 10,000 feet tall mountain had a huge scar on it. And this was just the shockwave. Leader, that is, the little brother we met in the tavern? Outside the nest of 10,000 devils, the demon-killing mercenary group, who had just arrived, were shocked as they looked at Tianyong, who was fighting fiercely with the spirit of demonic chi in the sky. Their memories of Tianyong were still fresh in their minds because he had sent their leader flying with a single finger. However, he had sent their leader flying with a single finger. Compared to the outer realm demon who was fighting in the sky, he was nothing. It's really. Feng Isa was also shocked, but he quickly recovered. We can't participate in a battle of this level. However, We can deal with these demonic chi monsters that were born from the demonic chi. Brothers, go. Exterminating demonic chi is not a one-man mission. Feng Isa roared as he held his long spear and aimed it at a monster that had charged out of the nest of 10,000 devils. Hearing this, the rest of the demon-killing mercenary group nodded and started exterminating the demonic chi on another level. How is this possible? How is this possible? The spirit of demonic chi was shocked as he looked at Tianyang in front of him. How is this possible? At this moment, he had already been slashed by Tianyang with countless wounds. Most of his demonic chi had also been destroyed. On the other hand, Tianyang was completely unscathed except for the slight injury he had received when he was testing the demonic chi spirit's strength at the beginning. Sky Sword Art, Third Sword Star Burial. Tianyang would not give the demonic chi spirit any time to catch his breath. The stick's sword in his hand shone with endless radiance. It was as bright as the stars and as dazzling as the 9 heavens as he attacked again. Damn it, 1,000 transformations, demon god body. The spirit of demonic chi roared angrily. The demonic chi in the nest of 10,000 devils immediately surged and turned into the spirit of demonic chi's body. Its body, which had been destroyed by the sky sun, immediately recovered. Furthermore, as runes flickered one after another, the body of the spirit of demonic chi continued to grow rapidly. 1,000 transformations, demon god body. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Looking at the crazily surging spirit of demonic chi, he knew very well what the 1,000 transformations demon god body was. This was the exclusive killer move of the Heavenly Demon Clan. Once the 1,000 transformations demon god body was activated, endless demonic chi would gather. It was enough to raise the user's strength to another level. That's right, it's the 1,000 transformations demon god body. The spirit of demonic chi laughed sinisterly. He looked at Tianyang with hatred and mockery. The strength of the 1,000 transformations demon god body is not something that a puny human like you can understand. Everything that happened before was just a fluke. Ha ha! The spirit of demonic chi laughed maniacally. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression darkened. He knew that the spirit of demonic chi was speaking the truth. If he had not seized the opportunity to attack consecutively, he would not have been able to injure the spirit of demonic chi so easily. Now that the spirit of demonic chi had used its killer move, with his cultivation, this battle was over. Stick's swordsmanship, river of forgetfulness. Tianyang roared angrily. The stick's sword in his hand once again slashed out a terrifying sword light, hitting the spirit of demonic chi right in the middle. However, it was useless. The spirit of demonic chi did not move at all. Instead, it was Tianyang himself who was forced to retreat. Ha ha ha! It's useless. Once the 1,000 transformations demon god body is activated, unless there is someone who is strong enough to crush me, no one can interrupt it. The spirit of demonic chi laughed maniacally. At this time, the demonic chi that he could continue to release had reached its limit. Boom! The demonic chi surged and turned into specks of starlight. The spirit of demonic chi's human body also turned into the original form of a heavenly demon. With 2 spiral horns and scales all over his body, he looked extremely ferocious. The spirit of demonic chi's aura had also crossed the threshold of the peak of the half-step sea of Soul Realm and reached the first level of the Sea of Soul Realm. Tianyang's expression was extremely grave. Now die for me. Chapter 459. 1,000 Transformations Heavenly Demon Palm. The spirit of demonic chi laughed maniacally as it struck out with its palm. Along with demonic chi, it charged towards Tianyang. The stick's sword in Tianyang's hand flashed, and he struck out again. Sky Sword Technique, Third Sword, Star Burial. Boom! The 1,000 Transformations, Heavenly Demon Palm, and Star Burial collided violently. However, Star Burial was no longer as invincible as before. Instead, it was smashed into pieces. As for Tianyang, He was sent flying by the palm. Bang, bang, bang. After smashing through 3 huge mountains, Tianyang's body finally came to a stop. The blood in his body churned, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Damn it, there's too much demonic chi in the nest of 1,000 demons. Otherwise, even if this guy used the 1,000 transformations demon god body, he wouldn't be so strong. Tianyang growled as he stared at the spirit of demonic chi in front of him. In essence, the 1,000 transformations demon god body was the strengthened version of the heavenly demon change. However, the 1,000 transformations demon god body needed to absorb demonic chi, while the heavenly demon change didn't. If the demonic chi absorbed was less, or if there was no demonic chi at all, Tianyang wouldn't be in such a sorry state. However, the demonic chi here was overflowing. Tianyang knew that this was the result of the spirit of demonic chi's thousands of years of hard work. Otherwise, the nest of 1,000 demons wouldn't be overflowing with demonic chi. Do I have to use that move? Tianyang's face was solemn as he muttered. The move he mentioned was Tianyang's final trump card. Remove the seal, ignore the limits of one's endurance, and activate the soul power of a peak ascension realm to kill everything. Back in the Northern Wilderness secret territory, Tianyang had used this move against the destructive thunder. However, this place was different from the Northern Wilderness secret territory. In the Northern Wilderness secret territory, there was the support of the Nirvana spiritual pool. Even if Tianyang suffered a backlash from using the soul power of a peak ascension realm, he could still recover. However, there was no such treasure ground in this place. If he used it, he would be on the verge of death. At least a year of recuperation was needed before he could recover. In a year's time, the competition would be over. This is the difference between the ants of the human race and the demons. It doesn't matter what you've done or what kind of secret technique you've used. It's all useless before me. The spirit of demonic chi laughed heartily. Demonic chi surged on its hideous and terrifying demonic godlike body, showing just how powerful the spirit of demonic chi was. Going from peak half-step Sea of Soul Realm to Sea of Soul Realm was a qualitative change. The spirit of demonic chi had undergone a qualitative change after taking this step. Its strength had skyrocketed to the point where the Heavenly Sun Realm was no match for it. Tsk, if it weren't for the fact that you were born a human and could never join our demon race, I wouldn't have the heart to kill you. Demon, 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 demon blood. It pool, demon, demon, sword, demon, 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 pool, 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 instead. Hearing this, Tianyang gritted his teeth and stood up again with the stick sword in his hand. Humph, you still want to resist? At this moment, even if you do everything you can, you won't be able to fight against me. Seeing this, the spirit of demonic chi laughed mockingly. The aura of a first-level sea realm cultivator spread out, telling Tianyang that he was no match for this demon. If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The spirit of demonic chi snorted coldly and pointed a finger. A ray of demonic light directly shattered Tianyang's defense, almost piercing through his chest. Blood spurted out crazily, and Tianyang's body fell to the ground once again. However, the true dragon core circulated rapidly, and the divine desolate sky spirit art erupted crazily. Tianyang stood up again. Humans can only die standing, not live kneeling. Tianyang roared, and his aura fluctuated to the extreme. The stick's sword in his hand burst out with endless light. Seeing this, the spirit of demonic chi's face darkened to the extreme. Stubborn, I'll kill you now. In the next moment, countless demonic chi gathered, and the spirit of demonic chi struck out with his palm, fiercely attacking Tianyang. You're not allowed to hit Daddy. At this moment, Tianyang's space bag fluctuated, and a petite figure rushed out, blocking the palm. Luo Luo. Tianyang's eyes were about to split open. He waved the stick's sword in his hand, wanting to rush forward to block the attack. However, it was too late. The giant demonic chi palm had already swallowed by Luo Luo. Bastard! Tianyang's eyes were red, and the blood in his body boiled to the extreme. Veins popped out on his forehead, and his true essence fluctuated unsteadily. An extremely violent dragon force erupted. The stick's sword in his hand turned from pitch black to blood red. At this moment, a rune suddenly lit up and burst out from the giant demonic chi palm. The giant demonic chi palm directly disintegrated. However, Bailuo's aura was also weak, and she fell from the sky. Luoluo, seeing this, Tianyang hurriedly rushed forward and caught Bailuoluo. Using his soul power to check, he found that Bailuoluo was only overly exhausted. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. After putting Bailuoluo back into the heavenly pagoda, Tianyang raised his head and glared at the spirit of demonic chi. His eyes were filled with anger, self-blame, and murderous intent. "You didn't die?" Seeing this, the spirit of demonic chi snorted coldly and struck out with his palm again. "Break for me!" Tianyang roared, and his true essence was stimulated to the extreme. The stick's sword in his hand suddenly released a terrifying sword light that collided with the palm. Boom! The space trembled, and the mountains and rivers collapsed. A terrifying aftershock erupted, shattering countless mountains and flattening endless forests. However, this palm strike and the sword light unexpectedly annihilated each other. As for Tianyang, he still stood in his original spot. The blood-red stick's sword suddenly erupted with boundless murderous intent, faintly reaching an agreement with the murderous intent released by Tianyang. Tianyang's soul trembled slightly, and he entered a strange state. Murderous intent, murderous intent, murderous intent, as well as that mysterious murderous path, all of these seemed to fuse together. Countless mysteries flowed through Tianyang's mind, and Tianyang's eyes became brighter. Rage can indeed bring out your potential, but how many slashes can you make like this? The spirit of demonic chi saw his palm being disintegrated by Tianyang and chuckled. He looked down on Tianyang and said, "The human race is indeed tenacious. However, no matter how tenacious you are, there will be a day when you die. However, the one dying now is you." At this moment, Tianyang raised his head, and an extremely cold light flashed in his eyes as he stared at the spirit of demonic chi. Seeing this, the spirit of demonic chi was stunned. Then he felt a terrifying chill rising from his back and rushing to the top of his head. It was as if this gaze did not come from a human world, but from the nine nether hell. "It's all thanks to you that I was able to comprehend this sword. Now, I'll use it to test it." Tianyang chuckled. His basic cultivation base, which was originally at the peak of the first heaven of the Tao Fire Realm, suddenly broke through to the second heaven of the Tao Fire Realm. The cultivation base raised by the sky-devouring secret skill also soared to the half-step sea of Soul Realm. Stick's Sword Technique, 4th Sword. Chapter 460. Stick's Sword Technique, 4th Sword, Tao of Azura. Tianyang spoke indifferently, and the blood-red stick's sword in his hand suddenly erupted with an incomparably terrifying aura. This aura was suffocating, as if it made one feel as if they were in the Azura hell. It was extremely terrifying. Seeing this, the spirit of demonic chi's expression suddenly changed, and it roared in disbelief. This is a domain. How can a mere Tao Fire Realm human cultivator master a domain? Even I don't have a domain. The spirit of demonic chi roared. It saw something extremely terrifying on Tianyang's body. Under Tianyang's feet, murderous aura spiraled. Above that, there was killing intent that was even stronger than murderous aura. Above that, there was killing intent. In the end, what Tianyang's sword carried was the legendary Tao of Slaughter. Even a portion of the soul force of the peak ascension realm that Tianyang had sealed had been extracted by Tianyang. If not for this, Tianyang would not have been able to use this slaughter domain. It was a slaughter domain that did not belong to a Tao Fire Realm cultivator. That's right, this is the slaughter domain. I didn't have it before, but I didn't expect that I would have it this time. Tianyang seemed to have fallen into an extremely calm state. He looked indifferently at the spirit of demonic chi. On the stick sword in his hand, the heavenly sword, dragon force, and the Tao of slaughter shone with endless brilliance. Seeing this, the spirit of demonic chi roared and charged out. I don't believe it. How can a Tao fire realm human ant have a domain that even I don't have? I don't believe it. Die for me. The spirit of demonic chi roared. In the next moment, it charged forward. Monstrous demonic chi condensed and charged towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled faintly, and a blood-red light flashed on the stick sword in his hand. Stick sword technique, fourth sword, Tao of Azura. The sword of Azura, when the sword was unsheathed, it must drink blood. A blood-red sword light slashed out towards the spirit of demonic chi. The spirit of demonic chi screamed. 1,000 transformations heavenly demon palm. However, the palm strike that had sent Tianyang flying had been easily destroyed by the Azura Tao sword. Previously, when the demonic chi spirit was at the peak of half-step C of Soul Realm, it already had the battle prowess of a first-level C of Soul Realm warrior. Now that it was at the first level of C of Soul Realm, its battle prowess was comparable to a peak second-level C of Soul Realm warrior. However, in front of Tianyang's slaughter domain, combat power was no longer absolute. Break, Tianyang said indifferently. The blood-red sword light immediately exploded with a terrifying blood-red light and directly chopped off the spirit of demonic chi's right arm. Ah! The spirit of demonic chi let out a loud roar. Boundless demonic chi gathered and formed a right arm once again. However, the spirit of demonic chi had suffered a heavy blow to its soul. Next, the left arm. Tianyang's expression didn't change. But at this time, the demonic energy spirit roared and rushed out once more. I don't believe that the domain is so invincible. I'm the spirit of demonic chi formed by thousands of demons. How can I die in the hands of a nobody like you? The spirit of demonic chi let out a hysterical roar. Demonic chi gathered in its hand and punched out again. An extremely large fist mark traversed the void and arrived in front of Tianyang. Break! Tianyang simply swung his sword and directly shattered the fist mark. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and he used the dragon roaming 9 heaven steps and disappeared from the spot. Then he slashed out with his sword. The blood-red sword light flashed. In the next moment, the spirit of demonic chi's left arm was cut off. Ah! The spirit of demonic chi screamed again. However, Tianyang didn't care about the spirit of demonic chi's feelings. With a cold expression, the stick's sword flashed and slashed out again. Next, left leg. The blood-red sword light flashed, and the spirit of demonic chi's left leg was cut off. This time, there was no more demonic chi to reconstruct his left leg. Next, right leg. Another blood-red light flashed, and the spirit of demonic chi's right leg was also cut off. In Tianyang's body, 107 of the 108 drops of Sky Origin True Essence have been burned. However, his expression was still calm as he attacked wildly with his sword. Damn it! Sky Devil Fist! Die! The spirit of demonic chi roared and punched out with its broken arms. However, Tianyang easily dodged them. The duration of the sky-devouring secret technique was about to end. Therefore, Tianyang's expression became much more serious. If the spirit of demonic chi wasn't killed during the duration of the sky-devouring secret technique, then Tianyang would definitely die. Epiphanies didn't happen all the time. The last sword, Azura Soul Annihilation. Tianyang roared angrily. The last drop of 9-colored Xinguang's true essence was completely burned. Even his soul began to tremble rapidly. The Dragon Force and Netherworld Force began to be released wildly. This sword was the strongest sword that Tianyang could perform now. At this moment, the spirit of demonic chi sensed that its life was in danger and roared crazily. If you want me to die, don't even think about living. Demonic chi, self-destruct. Countless demonic chi began to fluctuate wildly. In the next moment, endless light shot out from the spirit of demonic Chi's body. At this moment, the Azura soul annihilation rushed into its mind and destroyed the spirit of demonic Chi's soul. However, at this moment, all the demonic Chi began to explode. Boom, 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 boom. Beams of pitch-black light burst out. Tianyong immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The massacre territory that he had used with the help of the soul strength of the peak of Heaven Ascension realm was instantly disintegrated. In the next moment, Tianyong had just used the sky-stepping secret technique and arrived on the other side. At this moment, the sky-devouring secret technique's duration was also up. Boom! A terrifying blast of air directly shattered Tianyong's defense. Tianyong spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura weakened as he was sent flying countless miles away. The remaining demonic Chi also exploded once again, causing all the remaining demonic Chi to explode. From now on, the nest of 10,000 demons no longer had the word demonic. That otherworldly demon is gone. In a nest of 10,000 demons, Feng Isa looked at the surroundings that had suddenly cleared up and said in a daze. The demonic Chi in the nest of 10,000 demons had existed for thousands of years. There was more and more of it, but it had never disappeared. In the end, within the range of Feng Isa's soul strength, there was not a single trace of demonic Chi left. It's gone. It's gone. That otherworldly demon, I don't know where he died. On the other side, a member of the demon-killing mercenary group shouted excitedly. The others trembled and looked into the distance. The place where Tianyong and the spirit of demonic Chi had fought previously was peaceful except for the countless mountains that had collapsed and the forests that had disappeared. Yeah, the members of the demon-killing mercenary group all shouted excitedly as they started to cheer and jump for joy. As the demonic Chi disappeared, the demonic beast that had harmed the surrounding area also started to tremble. Finally, they died. Don't kill. What's going on? Outside the demon-suppressing city, a young man who had unfortunately encountered a demonic beast screamed and fell to the ground. As for the huge rat that was about to swing its sharp claws and end the young man's life, it was stunned on the spot and then collapsed. Dead. Dead? On top of the demon-suppressing city's city walls, countless people looked at the peaceful state of a nest of 10,000 demons and shouted excitedly. The nest of 10,000 demons is gone. In an instant, the entire city cheered. At this moment, in a dark cave, dozens of miles away from the demon-suppressing city. Chapter 461. Kacha! Kacha! Two strange noises suddenly rang out in the quiet, dark cave. Kacha! Kacha! Two more sounds rang out, and at this time, two beams of light suddenly shot out from within the cave. I'm finally awake. Tianyong let out a long breath. Just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly realized that he was surrounded by purple-black demonic Chi. Tianyong was so scared that he didn't dare to move. Even if he was a great emperor, he would still be scared to death when he woke up after being almost killed by this thing. Something's not right. Tianyong suddenly came to a realization. He carefully observed his surroundings and immediately understood. The demonic Chi appeared to be very terrifying, but that was all there was to it. It just occupied a slightly larger area. In fact, it was extremely thin. A body refinement realm cultivator would probably be able to withstand it for a few hours. For Tianyong's true dragon body, it was naturally nothing. TCH, I was almost scared to death. If the Ice Emperor, the mysterious Heaven Blade Emperor, or that brat Zhou Xing heard this, I don't know how much they would laugh at me. Tianyong pursed his lips. Finally, he shook off the stone on his body and sat up. At this time, Tianyong finally had the strength to look around. It was a very narrow and not very long cave. The area was very small. For a living person like Tianyong to be able to fit in here, it could be considered a pain in the ass. Apart from this extremely thin demonic Chi, there was nothing special about this place. Strange, didn't I forcefully use the massacre domain, overdraw my true essence to use the Tao of Azura many times, and even use my sealed soul force? These backlashes can easily kill me. Why'd I look fine now? Tianyang had a puzzled expression. He stood up and suddenly realized that a lot of dust had accumulated on his clothes. There was a lot of dust, and it looked very sturdy. It was a bit grayish-yellow. Obviously, it wasn't dust that had just fallen on his clothes. It can't be. Tianyang's eyebrows twitched, and he hurriedly circulated his soul force to investigate the surrounding situation. Before he realized how long he had been unconscious for, he discovered a shocking fact. This was the place where the spirit of demonic chi had been before the seal was broken. So I just killed that guy and fell into that guy's lair. Tianyang muttered. Then he stood up, and his Zhen Yuan shook off the dust on his body. The spirit flame of annihilation burned him from top to bottom at a low temperature, and his whole body suddenly looked brand new. However, even if I was unconscious for a long time, based on the injuries and backlash I suffered, it's impossible for me to recover so well. Tianyang was puzzled. He knew best what kind of injuries and backlash he had suffered. Tianyang's injuries were so deep that his bones could be seen from the countless wounds inflicted by the spirit of demonic chi. There was also the terrifying blow that pierced through his chest. All of these were enough to take Tianyang's life. In addition, Tianyang had overdrawn his Zhen Yuan to forcibly display the slaughter domain, which didn't belong to this realm. There was also the backlash from forcibly breaking a little bit of the seal and using the soul force at the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm. It was already good enough that Tianyang hadn't been killed directly. How could he still be alive and kicking like this? There was definitely a problem. Hey, the heavenly sword seems to have changed a little. Tianyang's mind moved slightly, and he immediately summoned the heavenly sword. Holding the heavenly sword in his hand, a huge and complex amount of information suddenly poured into Tianyang's mind. It turned out that it had been 2 months since Tianyang had killed the spirit of demonic chi. In other words, Tianyang had been unconscious for a full 2 months. In these 2 months, the heavenly sword had automatically protected its master and began to absorb the remaining demonic chi in the surroundings, transforming it into energy that Tianyang could absorb to heal Tianyang's body. In this way, Tianyang could recover so quickly and so well. However, this healing process consumed a lot of energy. Tianyang had absorbed almost 70% of the demonic chi in the core area of the demonic chi before he was fully recovered. As for the remaining demonic chi, the heavenly sword naturally didn't decline and began to rapidly devour it. Compared to the power of the martial soul, the demonic chi replenished the heavenly sword more. It was as if the heavenly sword itself was born to kill demons. After absorbing the remaining demonic chi, the heavenly sword immediately broke through the boundary of the middle earth rank and the boundary of the upper earth rank, reaching a half step to the heaven rank martial soul. A half step to the heaven rank martial soul. I'm afraid that there aren't many people in the martial arts holy lands in the central region who have existed since ancient times who have this level of martial soul. Holding the heavenly sword in his hand, Tianyang only felt a surge of excitement. A half-step martial soul was enough to make him laugh proudly in the entire firmament territory. The realm of Lingwu. Since the breakthrough is so great, let's try the power of this half-step martial soul. Tianyang grinned. Holding the heavenly sword in his hand, he aimed at the indestructible rock wall in front of him that was permeated by the demonic chi and slashed out casually. An extremely resplendent sword light suddenly erupted and shot fiercely towards the rock wall. The next moment, boom, a terrifying explosion burst out and crazily reverberated in the cave. Even Tianyang felt pain in his eardrums. At this moment, the cave trembled. Countless huge rocks collapsed, and many fell from the sky. The entire rock wall was directly smashed by Tianyang. Not bad at all. If I use the sky-devouring secret skill now, I may not need such a huge amount of demonic chi to reach the peak of the third heaven of the Tao Fire Realm. Tianyang chuckled and casually smashed the rocks in the air. The further he progressed, the greater the gap between the levels. Tianyang slept for 2 months and reached the peak of the second heaven of the Tao Fire Realm. However, Under normal circumstances, he could only reach the peak of the third heaven of the Tao Fire Realm. During the battle in the Heaven Tower, it was a combination of Tianyang's rage and the surrounding demonic qi. In addition, with the help of the Heaven Tower itself, it was possible for him to improve so much. Under normal circumstances, it was considered good to be able to improve by one level. If I fully unleash my power, reaching the half-step spiritual sea realm is not an extravagant hope. Tianyang laughed to himself. Then, his body trembled as he suddenly remembered something important that he seemed to have forgotten. It's been 2 months. The palace competition has already started. Heavenly Sun yelled and immediately summoned the Heavenly Pagoda. He entered it and immediately soared into the sky, flying towards Sky Blue Academy. He had been unconscious for 2 months. Perhaps the palace competition would have already been over. Sky Blue College, inner courtyard. Give up. The 10th palace is still the weakest. In the huge arena, Yuan Shan looked at Zhou Ling mockingly. So what if there's a Tianyang? After offending the Wang family, he might have already died in the nest of 1,000 devils. However, you two freshmen are quite interesting. One almost defeated my first palace's disciple, and with you it's almost 3 wins. Yuan Shan laughed loudly. Hearing this, Zhou Ling face turned pale. At this moment, Yuan Shan suddenly threw a punch and sent the 10th palace's disciple flying. His bones were broken and his dantian was shattered. This 10th palace's disciple's cultivation was directly crippled by Yuan Shan's punch. Chapter 462. Looking at the 10th palace disciple who fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string, Zhou Ling's face was ashen. She could not wait to rush up and smash Yuan Shan's head. As Tianyang had not returned for a long time, the 10th palace had spent a lot of effort to delay the palace tournament by a month. Unfortunately, everyone knew that even if it was delayed for half a year, Tianyang might not be able to return, let alone a month. After all, it was a death mission where countless geniuses had lost their lives. Now, a month later, the palace tournament, also known as the Grand Tournament of the 10 Palaces, had begun, but Tianyang still had not returned. Right from the start, the first palace had challenged the 10th palace. Other than Ling Yuhan, who had won a match with her, everyone else had lost. This was because in the previous Grand Tournament of the 10 Palaces, the one who ranked first could be the first to choose his opponent. The 10th palace, who ranked last, could only passively take a beating. Yuan Shan, the first palace has gone too far by doing this. Zhou Ling shouted angrily. Hearing this, Yuan Shan sneered. Gone too far? The first palace is so overbearing. Those who obey me prosper. Those who oppose me perish. The 10th palace of all people dared to provoke the first palace. So you'll have to face the consequences of being destroyed. Yuan Shan laughed maniacally. Then, he looked down at the 10th palace disciples below the arena with a condescending expression and mocked them. Now, who wants to come up and die? The rules of the Grand Tournament of the 10 Palaces were simple. Both sides would send out 5 disciples each. The loser would leave the arena, while the winner could choose to leave or continue. This was the reason why Yuan Shan continued to fight with a mocking expression on his face. Senior sister, I can't take it anymore. Let me go. I want to beat that bastard up. At this moment, a skinny young man suddenly stepped forward and said angrily. Hearing this, Zhou Ling trembled and immediately chased the person away. Get lost. Tang Fingyu. Do you think I don't know what you're capable of? You're just asking for death if you go up. But this person is so arrogant. He even insulted our 10th hall, Tang Fingyu said through clenched teeth. At this moment, in the 10th palace, other than Zhou Ling Flying Sword, Ling Yuhan, and Tianyang who had yet to return, he was the strongest person who had received Tianyang's guidance. At this moment, he was the only one who could fight Yuan Shan. At most, we'll just admit defeat. We'll fight again next year. Our 10th palace cannot afford to lose another member. Zhou Ling furrowed her brows and said angrily. Hearing that, Tang Fingyu could only retreat in defeat. In Tianyang's absence, Zhou Ling was the senior sister of the 10th hall. the person in charge of the students. If Zhou Ling did not allow it, it would be useless even if he went up. Ha ha! As expected, apart from a few freshmen and Zhou Ling, the rest of the Hall of Darkness are all useless trash. Seeing that, Yuan Shan laughed wantonly. Hearing that, Tang Fengyu trembled and glared at Yuan Shan. He could not wait to rush up and kill him. Flying Sword and Ling Yuhan, who had lost regretfully, were also furious. If young master, was here, he could kill you with a single finger. Hearing that, Yuan Shan's eyes narrowed slightly, and his expression became much colder. Tianyang? Humph, that guy killed Wang Lang and offended the Wang family. He's probably dead in the nest of 1,000 devils by now. Kill me with a single finger? I'll kill his corpse with a single finger. Yuan Shan sneered. Hearing that, Ling Yuhan could not hold it in any longer. Her nine-tailed lunar fox martial soul exploded, and the true origin of the peak first heaven of Dao Fire Realm was released. In the past 2 months, Ling Yuhan had also broken through to the peak first heaven of Dao Fire Realm. If she used all her trump cards, it would be no problem for her to defeat Yuan Shan. Oomph. After leaving the arena, you can't enter the arena again. Could it be that your 10th palace wants to go against the rules of the 10th palace and the rules of the inner yard? Yuan Shan laughed loudly. Hearing that, Ling Yuhan gritted her teeth and withdrew her martial soul. The true origin in her body also gradually calmed down. Yuan Shan was right. If she really attacked, the 10th palace would immediately be expelled from the grand competition of the 10 palaces. At that time, even the 9th palace would not be able to replace them. Seeing that, the people from the 2nd palace and the other palaces began to discuss. It's a pity. If Tianyang was here, this Yuan Shan would probably be killed in a matter of minutes. The 10th palace would at least be in the top 5. It can't be helped. He killed Wang Lang. Even if Wang Lang attacked first, it's still Tianyang's fault. The Wang family is powerful. How can a mere peak first heaven of Dao Fire Realm student resist them? Even if Tianyang is not dead, it's impossible to clear out the nest of 1,000 devils. That's a place that even Sea of Soul Realm experts are unwilling to go. The crowd discussed. Hearing that, the hearts of the people from the 10th palace trembled. A trace of despair appeared in their eyes. If there's really no one coming up, then we might as well admit defeat. After all, the 10th palace's fate will be taken by our 1st palace. Yuan Shan laughed wildly. At this moment, Zhou Ling gritted her teeth and was about to speak. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly shrouded the entire arena. What's going on? Zhou Ling was stunned. She raised her head and looked at the sky. Then her eyes widened. Yuan Shan also raised his head. Ling Yuhan and Flying Sword also did the same. Countless students were attracted by the strange phenomenon in the sky. In the sky, a majestic and domineering tower was floating slowly. Moreover, it was still descending rapidly. That is, Ling Yuhan and Flying Sword were stunned. Their pupils contracted to the extreme. Even their voices were trembling. How could they not know about this tower? At this moment, the elders in the audience stood up one after another. They looked at the huge tower in the sky, as if they were facing a great enemy. Who are you? Why did you come to our Sky Blue College's inner yard during the 10 Palaces Grand Competition? At this moment, the tower suddenly moved, and a figure that looked extremely small due to the distance walked out of the tower. In the next moment, the figure waved his hand. The tower shrank rapidly and landed on the person's palm. At this moment, a calm laughter sounded in the air. It's been 2 months. Everyone, how have you been? In the next moment, the figure suddenly disappeared. The elders' expressions changed drastically. Flying Sword and Ling Yuhan were so excited that they could not control themselves. You guys are. Zhou Ling looked at the two of them strangely. Then, she suddenly thought of a possibility. Her pupils contracted. Could it be? Boom! Right at this moment, a loud noise resounded from the arena. Terrifying waves of air caused even the surrounding Dao Fire Realm students to take a few steps back. That figure had also appeared on the arena. Yuan Shan's pupils contracted. His finger trembled as he pointed at the person in front of him. Sky Blue College's inner yard. 10th Hall's eldest senior brother, Tianyang. Tianyang smiled faintly. He looked at Yuan Shan in front of him with a mocking smile. Rape it will, kill it will. Perhaps the 10th Hall of the past was really like that. Chapter 463. One move is enough to defeat you. Tianyang smiled faintly and looked down at Yuan Shan from above. He slowly released the true essence in his body. It was as if a faint pressure that could surpass the heavens and earth was released. It was not deliberately suppressed, but it still made Yuan Shan tremble incomparably. It was clear that this pressure was only released from Tianyang, a youth who was not even 17 years old. However, it made him feel something. In front of Tianyang, he would be easily crushed. Thinking of this, Yuan Shan suddenly shivered and shook his head vigorously. He got rid of this feeling and stared fixedly at Tianyang with monstrous anger. Tianyang, you are too arrogant. I am from the first hall, someone on the 100 Kings leaderboard. Even Lung Xing's eldest senior brother wouldn't dare to say that he could defeat me in one move, let alone you. Die! Yuan Shan roared and unleashed his cultivation at the 3rd level of the Dao Fire Realm. His speed instantly soared to a terrifying level as he charged towards Tianyang. High-grade Earth-tier martial skill, Flame Heaven Blasting Fist. Yuan Shan roared. In the next moment, a visible scarlet true essence condensed on Yuan Shan's fist. In the next moment, it turned into an extremely hot flame. Under the burning of the flame, even the space was slightly fluctuating. The true essence of the 3rd level of the Dao Fire Realm, coupled with this high-grade Earth-tier martial skill, was almost enough to shake this space. Seeing this scene, the people of the first hall all revealed a smile. Even if senior brother Yuan Shan loses, it is absolutely impossible for him to be defeated by Tianyang in one move. Although Tianyang is powerful, this move is something that even Lung Xing's eldest senior brother wouldn't dare to say that he could destroy in one move. This Tianyang is too arrogant. He even dares to provoke the Wang family. Now that he has been slapped in the face by senior brother Yuan Shan, he deserves it. The group of disciples from the first hall laughed out loud. However, when they saw this scene, the faces of Li Tusu, Lu Ao, and the others who were familiar with Tianyang darkened slightly. Looking at Tianyang's extremely calm face from beginning to end, Li Tusu, Lu Ao, and the others felt their hearts sink. If he wasn't absolutely confident, Tianyang wouldn't be so calm. However, Yuan Shan's punch was simply too powerful. Even the cold star would find it difficult to break through, let alone the heavenly sun. Although Tianyang had broken through the training tower for the first time in history, it was only the training tower. In terms of strength, it was almost impossible for Tianyang to be stronger than Lung Xing. However, at this moment, Yuan Shan to the end to his face, Tianyang. How dare you insult me? You'll have to pay with your blood. Flames! Kill this brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Yuan Shan roared. The flames burning on his fist became even stronger. Seeing this, an elder from the Wang family couldn't help but nod his head in agreement. This move was much stronger than when Yuan Shan had just used it. Even compared to some half-step Spirit Sea Realm students, it was not much weaker. In his opinion, blocking Tianyang's move was more than enough. Too much true essence has dissipated. The temperature of the flames is not high. There is only the power of the fist. There is no fist intent, and there is no use of the power of heaven and earth. This high-grade earth stage martial skill is truly shameful in your hands. Tianyang shook his head and looked at the flame heaven-blasting fist in front of him. You don't even have the qualifications to make me draw my sword. In the next moment, the true essence in Tianyang's body circulated as he pointed out. Profound rank martial skill, telepathic sword finger. Tianyang had not used this finger many times, but the profoundness of the sword Dao contained within this finger had been tempered countless times by Tianyang. Martial skills did not depend on the grade. The most important thing was still the user. An unstoppable finger beam with a terrifying aura pierced through the void and shot out. What? Seeing this, the Wang family elder's expression changed drastically. He looked at Tianyang in disbelief. How could this move be used by a person in the Dao Fire realm? As for Yuan Shan, he also felt the power of this finger. His face instantly turned pale, but the flame heaven-blasting fist had already landed. Boom! A terrifying explosion rang out as the flames crazily fluctuated. In the next moment, they were completely destroyed by the profoundness of the sword Dao contained within the telepathic sword finger. As for the telepathic sword finger, it had yet to disperse. Instead, with an even more terrifying speed, it charged towards Yuan Shan. Bang! A loud collision rang out and resounded throughout the entire arena. It was a pity that even though Yuan Shan had used all his strength to display his defense, he was still no match for Tianyang. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Yuan Shan's lower abdomen. Yuan Shan was sent flying by this finger. He crashed heavily into the wall of the arena. Blood spurted from his mouth as he fainted. As for the elixir field in his lower abdomen, it was completely destroyed by Tianyang's finger, shattering the elixir field and destroying his cultivation. Tianyang's move is really ruthless. You were humiliated by Yuan Shan. It would be strange if you didn't kill him. Tianyang is still soft-hearted. However, I would like to test his strength. A great senior brother from the 7th Hall chuckled. In the next moment, he jumped onto the fighting ring and faced Tianyang. Junior brother, please enlighten me. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly and nodded indifferently. Then, he pointed out with his finger again. This finger again. Seeing this, the great senior brother from the 7th Hall's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly circulated his true core to defend himself. However, he could not withstand it and was sent flying. Seeing that the great senior brother from the 7th Hall had been defeated so easily, everyone's expression changed drastically. The great senior brother from the 6th Hall was eager to give it a try. Let me. Boom! With a punch, the great senior brother from the 6th Hall was sent flying. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. The great senior sister from the 5th Hall could not take it anymore. She went onto the stage and shouted, I would like to see what you have up your sleeves. With a slap, the great senior sister from the 5th Hall was smashed into the ground. Seeing this, the 4th and 3rd Halls were filled with righteous indignation. They immediately charged forward. However, in front of Tianyang, they could not withstand even one blow and were sent flying. Compared to Yuan Shan, whose cultivation had been destroyed, they were much better off. As for the 2nd Hall's great senior brother from Jiang, Nanyu's Jiang family, Jiang Ping, after he went onto the stage, he looked at Tianyang with a complicated expression and decisively admitted defeat. He did not want to be sent flying. However, seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. They could not believe it. Even the strongest people from the 3rd and 4th Halls had been defeated by Tianyang. The great senior brother from the 2nd Hall had directly admitted defeat. Then, the one who could fight against Tianyang was only the one who stood at the side and did not make a move. Cold Star. At this moment, Tianyang stood proudly on the stage. The stick sword in his hand shone with a cold light. One man and one sword had defeated the 10 Halls.